Okay. Where are we? There we are. And good evening, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 738, Translation, Localization, Censorship, and You. That's a whole bunch of topics. The first two are related. The third one is semi-related depending on the translators. And we're usually always talking about Japanese animation coming over from the East and being dubbed into the West, whether that's by the official channels or otherwise. We always get different quality products from those translators. And I'm just having a great time. Like, anime has just exploded last year. I'm still catching up. And I just discovered a new one. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it. It's called Shangri-La Frontier. I don't know.
I've actually been watching that.
I've heard of that.
Isn't that brilliant?
It's so good.
It's basically, what's that guy from Elden Ring? Let Me Solo Her? That guy. Like, take that guy and put him in an anime. That's pretty much what it is. And how
it's exactly that.
As soon as I saw that, like, wait a second, I know this guy. Like, what's his name? I have to go Google his name again. Yeah, it's that guy from Elden Ring who always wants to solo Millennia. And
my favorite part of that is that the main character is so good at the game, not because he's used to playing games like it, but because he's used to playing busted, broken games.
He plays the worst games possible because they're so challenging and they're so painful. Like, imagine the oldest games like Castlevania 2 or like really old games that were so hard to play, and just playing all of them and just being extremely good at all of those games. And then your GameStop your game owner, seller, whatever, says, hey, try a good game for once. You'll have more fun. He's like, okay. And he gets this game where everything's like balanced and beautiful and works and there's no bugs. And it's like, oh my God. And he just dominates that because he's done everything for so long. It's the hardest games possible that everything's easy to him, which is kind of a funny idea when you're talking about MMOs, but it doesn't quite translate to real life, but that's okay. It's virtual reality gaming. So they have a little of flexibility there. Anyway, so the video we're covering today is called Translation, Localization, Censorship, and You, and it's from someone named Red Bard. It's about 30 minutes long. We're not going to cover it all, of course, but apparently something's happened recently, and this is a 3-year-old video, so I don't know what's been going on in those past 3 years.
Oh,
yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
I would have thought this is a recent thing because the socialist activists are currently in total damage control, or at least they try to, as they complain about being rationalized away by Japanese AI translations.
Oh, interesting. It's kind of funny, though, because when I was watching Shangri-La Frontier, you can tell the subtitles aren't exactly matching up to what's being said on screen, but the general idea of what is happening is being translated. So it's like, okay, that's...
The Japanese will use still human oversight for the AI translations for like getting the sentences better, but there will be no such things as ideological injections. That's what I want to prevent.
Yeah.
And Kaiser, you have your something screen on.
Camera.
That's messing up the icons. Okay, he'll fix it.
We're watching video for some reason.
Yeah. Don't mute your microphone. Mute your camera. Yeah. So what's happened recently is the way I can reconstruct it is some of the chat from Asmongold pointed him at the absolutely horrible ideological deliberate mistranslations. He didn't want to believe that at first. For anyone who doesn't know, Asmongold is a fairly big live streamer. He started with streaming World of Warcraft, and now he streams various games and also talks a lot with chat. Thing is, he didn't want to believe that, the excesses of that, and then went into a deep dive and just saw the utter insanity of what's going on, including finding a panel at some convention, I think Comic-Con, where the feminist panelists, I don't care why it's on, just turn it off. Where thank you, awesome. Where the feminist panelists when they were questioned about why they were doing this, their answers were things like, because I have a vagina. It's just similarly silly stuff like that, and it's just unbelievable madness, unbelievable bitchiness, all the stuff that you would, if the term toxic femininity was a thing, that's what it is. But in the end, I think it's just narcissism, which is, I guess, produces that. Thing is, from then on, it just got worse and worse and worse. And the funny thing is, Asmongold apparently has Japanese fans. And they clipped that, subtitled all of that, and that is how now the Japanese audience got to know what the West is actually doing, because apparently they didn't get through to Japan so far. And they are furious at what's being done to Japanese art and to their waifus, of course.
Right.
One rumor I heard was that one of the driving forces behind replacing Western localizers with Japanese AI, which they are feeding with for learning the Japanese language model with light novels. One of the driving forces behind that allegedly was a Yakuza boss whose favorite waifu was insulted by Western localization. I don't know whether that was actual Lukua from the clip, or my bet is it was something from Granblue. That's kind of the vibe I got.
So,
Do you have more news on that?
That story comes from 2chan, and that's basically Japanese 4chan, so it is just a theory that the Japanese have thrown out there.
You know that the chants have a similar accuracy to Alex Jones plus jokes.
Oh.
Yes.
So it's probably true.
All right. Well, we're going to put it's a rather long video. We're going to put I don't know how quick she talks, but we're going to crank this up to 1.25. 1.25 is good enough.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get started.
It's kind of weird to think that in a large community...
Oh, we're getting some echo. Ooh, where's the echo going?
Nick.
Let's try that again.
You know, it's kind of weird to think that in a large community of people whose hobby revolves around
can you please use
translation,
headphones?
that translation is nonetheless wildly misunderstood by a large number of those people.
Okay,
Then why do we get echo?
Why are we getting echo from Nick? Nick.
Hold on, my Discord's fucking up.
Well, I'm going to put you on mute. How's that until we get this going?
Okay, yeah. I'm probably going to end up leaving because I'm going to close the window. I might need to be back.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
To the point where it's like, I support translators and not localizers have become, well, a thing in general. Oh my god, and yet here we are. When asked about what he thinks
I'm getting a
is the
headache,
biggest
sorry.
misconceptions surrounding translation,
Can we
localization,
wait?
and...
From what?
I'm getting a headache from the echo. Sorry.
Okay,
You
well,
can mute Nick.
Because I can't hear it.
Nick, just mute your mic, man. It should be fine.
My mic?
No, Nick should mute his mic. Therefore, I don't have to mute him, and you don't have to mute him, and we all don't have to mute our own version of
I got
Nick.
a mute button. Hold on. I'll press it.
Okay. Anytime.
Yes.
Anytime, Nick.
It's one button.
I pressed it.
You didn't.
I don't see it muted, but okay, if you say so.
If you pressed it, how can I still hear you?
Let's see what that did anything.
Censorship, professional
There you
translator.
go.
Cooper told me that the whole process is just
echo.
a simple version of language B. There's far
Yeah,
more.
I'm hearing it
Dude,
too.
I can't process what's being said with this echo. I'm
Yeah, so
sorry.
all you gotta do, Nick, is mute your mic. You just press the mute button, and when you want to talk, just unmute. That's all you gotta do. All right, Mike, Nick, hello. All right, I'll mute you for you. How's that? And if you want to talk, then go ahead. All right, here we go.
There's far more than just that. And as though they were reading
No.
Which is to say that, and because this problem is in fact that prominent, several other translators told me pretty much the same thing, that there's a lot of people who just don't understand that translation isn't some simple machine process. In the words of an anonymous ADR director that I spoke to, language isn't Legos, and there isn't a one-to-one fit. And that's where this video comes in. I want to help you understand what translation, localization, and censorship actually are, and perhaps more importantly, what they aren't. Let me and some industry professionals tell you all about it. For this video's research, along
You need to add propaganda in between those, though. Because I can tell you right away, what these people that people complain about are doing is not localization, it's propaganda injection. That's not the same as localization.
Alongside reading and watching lots of material about this subject, I reached out to several professionals in the Japanese to English translation industry. Not all of them wanted to be named, but rest assured, the names and or tags of those
you mean the
who didn't wanna
horrible
be kept
people?
anonymous are in the description, and I encourage you to thank them all, not only for helping me out with this video, but also for doing the work that they do, because, as you're about to find out, translation can often be an underappreciated and sometimes even thankless job.
Oh, it's a very hard job, especially if you have any poetry in it, like songs or something, or puns. It becomes nigh impossible. That is, of course, where you have to be a bit creative yourself and can't just Google translator shit. But in order to not inject your own personal politics, worldview, religion, whatever it is that drives you and distorts your reality, Google Translation is better than that. For anything else, you can just add extras, like put an asterisk, put an overtitle on it that explains, oh, by the way, here's a pun, this is how it works, Japanese is weird, there we go.
Yeah, manga, you could do that very easily, because there's all these wonderful little things on the side. You could explain, oh, this is a euphemism, this is a famous folklore that no one understands the word for.
Yeah.
So
the best subtitles I ever had found for Excel Saga had that, but that group sadly never finished it. It was they were called Slow as Hell fans.
Excel Saga. That's the one thing I could say. The subs are amazing. Like they need that. It's so crazy. Like you can't just watch Excel Saga.
Yeah, because it's puns, it's pop culture references that if Japanese would watch it now, they wouldn't get half the pop culture references.
It's like playing WarioWare in another language. Like it's so hard to follow. It's like what just happened? And then it has to like slow down and explain to you, oh, this is a pun or this is it's amazing. Like okay, Excel Saga is scary as hell, but watching it is just like you could do this in animation. Like, yeah, you can do this. Crazy.
No, when the great will of the Grand Universe grapes Pedro, that is scary. That is really scary.
Did Nicola Khan, you have something to say? I didn't catch that.
I don't know. I have him muted.
I said Gintama was like the same way.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's more recent for sure. Yeah.
A lot of the jokes are.
Does this mic work properly now?
Yeah, it's working. You can turn them on. What do you?
Okay.
Had a mute.
I don't know why, but my Discord.
Well, what should I do? I'll go crazy otherwise.
All right. Gintama, I'll be happy to check out Gintama then. All right, here we go.
Everyone a bunch of questions about their experiences in the translation industry, about their views on translation and the discourse around it, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's thanks to their insights that I think I've been able to...
Have you... the thing that I want to know, have you asked translators from Japan or the social justice bullshit activists from the West that cause all the problems? Because they will say that, this is totally necessary to turn Lukua into a feminist who is annoyed by the patriarchy's demands of her dressing lightly. When in the original, she's just dressing up because she got annoyed by everyone complaining about her light clothing, which is the complete opposite.
That's going to be probably the problem with this video is she only asked the localizers, so of course they're going to say they're doing the right thing.
Well, you can ask localizers that live in Japan because there are English to Japanese or Japanese to English localizers that work inside of Square Enix's building. Like all of Square Enix's games, well, for the most part, like the Final Fantasy games, are all localized in-house. So you can ask those translators.
What about the Kingdom Hearts one?
Kingdom Hearts is Disney. That's a different one.
Ah.
That's a different reason for that one.
Okay.
Right, thing will be a good video to show to people who don't quite understand what translation is, which, is a dressed up way of saying, oh my god, I'm begging you, watch this video, and ideally the ones on the end card too, before you make a complaint about translation again. Oh my god, I am so tired of this discourse happening every other week. So with all that being said,
Alright.
let's go ahead and begin at the beginning, or more specifically, let's begin at where the heart of where most of the misunderstandings surrounding translation are.
Okay, here's a dictionary definition.
Oh my god.
Localization. For me, okay, so it's a personal one?
Yeah, it's an anonymous quote.
Okay, for me, all translation is going to include a healthy dollop localization. What does dollop mean?
It's a slang for dollar.
No, it's not. Dollop.
Oh,
It means like a spoonful.
Yeah.
Okay. Dollop localization, because you're not aiming for equivalency. Yes, you are aiming for equivalency.
Yeah, that's
trying to
exactly
connect-
what localization is.
You're trying to connect text culturally. No, not necessarily linguistically. Depends, and ultimately make a readable, yes, easy to understand. If the original is shit to understand, then the translation wouldn't be easier to understand necessarily, as well. I could quote Marx on that, because that is horrible to read in any language. It's not meant to be understood. Accessible text that someone can enjoy. Cyrek, I watched with you an Asterix movie that I subtitled, because the original was garbage. How would you describe that?
It kept the original meanings and was still easy to understand.
Yeah, and there were songs in there, and like that rhymed, and I tried to keep that in line. And that's a good translating songs, for example, poetry. That's a good example of where you have to diverge from the original, because if you want to keep the poetry of the text, you can either keep the actual literal meaning of the poem. Song basically is a poem in that sense, or you can keep the song, the poetry of it, and then you have to adapt the words, because you cannot make the same linguistic
Melody.
tricks in another language, because there are other words that rhyme. So the mental image that you create will be slightly different, but you will still try to keep up the same essence. And the best example of that is the German version of Disney's Jungle Book, which was internationally heralded as better than the original, which is an absolutely astonishing critique, a positive critique. And that is what a localization would be. That you still, I would say, for song, you still have the songs, they have the poetry, they have the meaning, even though they can't use the exact same words. That would be correct. What the Lukua example is the opposite of that. Nick?
Another song you could probably check out is Closer by Joe Inu. It was one of the Naruto opening themes. He's also an English speaker, so he has an English and a Japanese version of that song.
And Uchada Hikaru, who did the openings for Kingdom Hearts, is also an English and Japanese speaker, and both songs are versed the same way. Yeah, she's saying both Japanese and English, and they're versed the same way. It's just there are several word changes.
Yeah, and this is not the before the internet times anymore, where you would go harder on the cultural equivalence for jokes. Like you wouldn't use in the 80s, 90s translation of sitcoms. You wouldn't use American pop culture jokes. You would replace the American pop culture joke with a German pop culture joke in the German dub. Simply because nobody knows American culture in Germany at that time, so you'd use something locally. That's why in Married with Children, the Al Bundy show, jokes about some American running gag about some American actor was replaced with jokes about Klaus-Jürgen Wusso, which probably no American knows, but it's a funny joke in German.
That happened in Fooly Cooly too. There was like
Oh yeah.
there was a full page spread of some Japanese actor to like I can't remember Jennifer Aniston or something.
It was something that completely like this does not compute, and they were they tried to say her name, and it was like that doesn't even, or whatever the person's name was. Like it didn't even like sound like the actors were doing it right. You're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. But now the American culture has mingled so much that you wouldn't need to do these things anymore. You would just keep the original. Well,
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm seeing in practice as well, at least.
I think they did that recently. Well, not recently, but was Jujutsu Kaisen. The guy was saying, he was talking to the other guys, like, what's your ideal woman? He's like, Jennifer Lawrence or something like that. He's like, someone with a nice ass, long legs. He's like, oh my God, you're my brother. He always kept using the English version of brother. And it just sounded like, okay, this is getting a bit too
My
brother.
brother.
Like little Hideo Kojima there's like, oh my God, it's just really pushing this relationship here. But yeah, no, it was you can notice these influences that are just part of, for whatever reason, Hollywood is influencing the world by virtue of being popular. So hopefully that comes back the other way around.
Yeah, but these are localization exceptions that you did in the past. You do them less now, and they are still trying to keep what this bullshit definition, I'll call it, tries to erase. It tries to keep an equivalence with the original. It tries to keep the original intent up. The Luko example, which I'd say is the go-to example about all of this, isn't doing that. It's turning the character into an inversion of the character. That's horrible.
Yeah, even like the jelly donut stuff from Pokemon is a better localization than that.
Yeah. Sadly, yes. I have a question. Do you know whether the Pokerap is has the Pokemon in a different order in other languages?
I think the poker rap is only in English.
No, it exists in German, and it's
It
awesome.
does?
I've heard it in other languages. I can't remember the exact ordering though.
I know someone from the band who does he's a local music teacher. He's in a pop goth metal band, and his band is still doing the poke rap at the end of each of their concerts as an addition. You have this metal band there, and at the end they're singing the poke rap. It's great.
I do know that after cutting ties with the dubbing facility in America, the Pokemon Company started translating in-house as well. And that's why after, what was it? Hoenn or Sinnoh? It was around the time of Gen 5 that the soft reboot happened. And the Pokemon Company took everything from the West and was like, okay, we're going to just hire our own voice actors that we want and use your facilities, but we're going to be the ones translating everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was after or before 4Kids like actually went defunct.
I think it was after.
Okay, let's keep going.
Right.
I don't think there is a single word that strikes fear in the hearts of Japanese media fans quite as effectively as localization. What a fun and often completely misunderstood word that is. So, what is it?
Wait,
and
wait,
why
wait,
does
let
it
me see
matter?
the
And
meme.
more importantly, what's its relationship to translation?
Who's gonna search for the meme? So
Let
that
me see if I can find.
Mike search for the meme.
That's too far.
I'll just catch it. Hold on, just.
There is a single word that strikes fear in the hearts of Japanese media fans quite as effectively as localization. What a fun and often completely
All right, let's see.
What Weeps think localization is? If you're a real cishet patriarch, then you'll catch me outside Walmart, Kevin. What localization actually is, if you're a real man, kitty cat, then you accept any fight.
But they did do the top thing and fucking skate the infinity. They did do that.
That's what I try to sell us as localization, but that is propagandization.
I would say the bottom one's a poor one too, anyway.
But it is less horrible than whatever this thing at the top is, because that's subversive propaganda. They take over an institution, which is translation, to inject on the way their ideology, their propaganda into a cultural product from somewhere else that they know is popular, because they know nobody wants their fucking propaganda shit by itself. Everything they make with that instantly dies. Nobody even begins to watch it. If they inject it into something that's already popular, then people accidentally fall at it. They don't fall for it, but they get it at least thrown in their faces, and that's all they want. That is part of that is Antonio Gramsci's culture war strategy. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. This has been formulated, 60, 70 years ago? I forgot what year we're in. I'm getting too old.
2024.
Yeah, but this is not something recent. This is not something special. This is what socialists, the left, in quotation marks, whatever you think the left is, this is the left. This is what they've always been doing. And this is not only the fringe extremists do it. No, this is the wider left, the actual core of the left that does it. This is all that it's about. Put the propaganda into everything that exists so that that nobody has a chance to get away from it, that you don't ever get a pause from it. And on the way, all the culture is tainted. You don't want to interact with it anymore. You're tired of Star Wars because it's broken. You're tired of Star Trek because it's broken. You'll be tired of the Babylon 5 reboot because it'll be broken. You're tired of The Witcher. You're tired of eventually you'll be tired of Warhammer because the stuff gets in it. You'll be tired of everything. And then all culture is gone. You have no escapism anymore. And then the socialists stand there and say, now you need to like us because we're the only thing that's left. That is the actual culture war. It's not war of cultures against one another. It's just these people who do this against everything. And that you would think that would be, well, if it's just that, if it's just these few fringe assholes, then that should be easy to beat, right? The problem is we all sit in our little bubbles and just take the fucking hits. And thankfully, thanks to Asmongold of all people and his Japanese fans, praise be to them, Japan is doing something. And the woke pseudo translators, they're livid. They now go, but you're not appreciating our work. You're not respecting our art. Like, you're not producing art. You're just putting your narcissism into everything. Go away. Nobody needs you. But you need human oversight for good translations. The AI gets human oversight in Japan. Nobody needs you. These people destroyed their own jobs by overstepping the line for too long.
Yeah, the big problem with the dubbing in America is that almost all the people doing this shit have been here since the beginning, like Chris Sabat, Sean Schemmel, and even Jamie and Monica. So they all got super respected by the community because they were doing it somewhat right before. But now they're inserting this bullshit, and the only people who seem to care, or at least seemed to before the Asmongold shit, were getting brushed aside and ignored.
The thing is, it needs to get to someone who borders normieism until this gets wider attention. And Asmongold is just a person of that, because he stands on the border between gamer, nerd, and normie. He has an insane audience, insanely large audience, and that's how you get this actually spread, through people like him. He's like on the other end, you have the ideologues with a super large audience like Hassan Piker, who spout their brain dead bullshit to 1 million people, 1 million young impressionable people. So it's good we finally got a win on the other side.
You sure those fans aren't for his chair, not him?
Yeah, there may be a lot of people who watch him to actually just watch his chair, yes.
And Asmon's audience is actually full of people who might actually agree with the stuff we are saying, and not Hassan's audience who would.
It's half and half. No, from what I saw, I've just watched Asmongold for the past few weeks. I never much watched him before, except for a few clips people sent me. But he's currently playing Monster Hunter World, and it is a joy to watch.
I don't know if it's because his audience just has people trolling him, or if it's
no. His audience, of course, has propagandists in it that accuse him now of having right-wing views that he's adopting, and that he responds to those accusations. But what do you mean with right-wing views? What are you talking about? And I'm not further explaining that, because what they mean with right-wing views is that he's against this type of propagandization, this distortion. He doesn't understand it as propagandization directly, or where it comes from. He doesn't understand what the socialists actually do, and he doesn't need to. But he can see the symptom, and the symptom is here's something maliciously done by horrible, narcissistic, selfish, crazy people who are completely unlikable and feel absolutely entitled to shit over the art of other people, and he calls that out, and the leftist agents in his audience accuse him thus of being now right wing, which means they will probably in a couple of weeks try to cancel him, which we'll see what happens there. But most of what I saw in his chat seemed rather behaved. So if these people are gathering, they are probably just gathering in the Reddit or something. Because you must understand, these people are usually the ideologues are usually not sitting en masse at a person that they dislike, that they don't fully agree with. They only occasionally go there to see if they can turn that person. And if that person can't be emotionally extorted or otherwise manipulated, they leave again because it's too frustrating. Because they don't have a high emotional tolerance, so they try it another time maybe, or someone else tries it again, and they go back to the people that they like to watch, which is their preachers, their prophets like Hassan and Vosh, who give them nice feelings about being right, about feeling correct. Because that's just ideological enforcement. It's just an emotional game.
Yeah. And Jamie already seemed to have tried to start the cancelization on her TikTok too.
Jamie?
Yeah, she made a video about Asmongold audience attacking her. Jamie Marchi is the Lukua.
Oh, jeez.
The one who made the bad translation, you mean?
Yeah, she's responsible. She's responsible for a lot of bad translations.
Okay, yeah. That was one of the things leveled at Asmongold for. Are you taking responsibility for what your audience is doing to this poor translator who's just doing her job? That I remember that part of the message, and he said, "I'm not responsible for what my audience does. What the fuck?" And that is the correct answer there. He didn't incite anyone. He's not telling anyone go harass that person. It is just what we see there is the measuring with two, what's the English thing?
Huh?
Not sure. But
when you measure with different scales.
Measure twice, cut once?
When you use different standards for
apples and oranges.
Double standards.
Not apples and oranges. When you use different standards for
double standards.
Double standards. Thank you. My God. Sorry.
I like mine better.
And because the thing is that the left does is when they see someone who does wrong thing, who does the non-dogma, the non-socialist dogma stuff, they go, "Oh, you have freedom of speech, okay, but you don't have freedom from consequences. Haha, therefore we punch you now." When the left, however, gets consequences for their actions, their real actions, and this mistranslation these are actions, these are malicious actions. When they get that, they go, "You're harassing me, you're harassing me." No, that's your consequences for your free speech.
Asmon actually did call that out in the video. He said, how much of that harassment is just criticism?
Exactly. And that's exactly. He is surprisingly good at disarming all of these bullshit accusations. It's great. It's wonderful.
Okay, let's continue.
So, what is it and why does it matter? Its relationship to translation. The dictionary definition of localization is simply
Alright. The process of making something local in character or restricting it to a particular place. And there's the other one, which is just, that one.
That example is, I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. The important thing is making it fit your ideological bubble isn't making it culturally equivalent. Your bullshit ideological bubble is not a culture. It's a subculture at best, and a very horrible and unhealthy one at that. It's like as if the Jehovah's Witnesses were doing all our localizations. Ugh.
Something local in character or restrict to a particular place. And while that may sound like it's just a fancy way of saying that it means to anglicize something, in practice, it's actually a lot more broad than that. If translation is trying to convert words from...
Yeah, good you brought up the Excel saga thing, because that thing was full of asterisks that explained all the puns and cultural references.
To another, then localization is converting the sentiment and ideas behind the words. It's a key step in any translation process, and not something restricted to, say, Funimation and Crunchyroll. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and say that one more time, just because there's an alarming number of people who seem to think that localization is just something done to censor anime. Localization is a step in the translation process. Officially sourced translations will do it, and...
Yes?
Well, when that's what happens in practice, of course, people are going to accuse it of what that is.
I'm sure there's many steps they go through to finish product, but it depends on the standards they use to do so based on the complexity of the prose. So if they don't have to localize things, they don't have to. It's not a big deal. But if they're doing some really referential piece with a lot of folklore or I don't know, maybe regional stuff that's like 400 years old, then yeah, you'd have to have some sort of localization to make that make sense to people who don't know Shintoism or don't know, 400 years of some event that happened to explain an ethic or a moral or some sort of lesson. So I don't know. It's part of many other steps, so that's fine.
Unofficial suburbs. If it's translated, then it's almost certain at least some degree, and that's not a bad thing. Probably the most well-known example I could offer you of how a great localization can do wonders for something is the Yakuza series, whose spectacular localization is at the heart of a lot of its overseas success. It's not only a testament to how important good localization can be, but also about how localization and anglicizing aren't the same thing. It's also good proof that comedy is generally where localization is at its most noticeable, and this goes double for jokes based on puns and wordplay. Obviously, the humor of the pun especially is going to be lost if you don't localize it, so translators will often try to use the Japanese as a base to put in a similar joke that'll still be funny and understandable for an English-speaking audience. And honestly, there's nobody better at coming up with puns than game translator Blick, who told me about this. The intent of jokes is to be funny, and laughter crosses language barriers. One example I've heard of is Nabeshin seeing a screening of the dub for Nerima Daikon Brothers. He complimented the ADR staff specifically for the fact that the audience laughed at the appropriate times. On the flip side, representatives from Kara were not pleased when the audience laughed at inappropriate times in a screening of the Evangelion 3.0 dub, which caused caused the movie to get completely redubbed for the home video release. Anyways, I'm telling you all of this.
Isn't Neon Genesis funny at all steps?
Yeah, it has funny moments, especially in the Rebuild series.
Well, if you guys haven't seen Nabishin,
the older you get, it's just every scene becomes funny.
Like you guys have to know
when I know. Sorry, Smart.
I'm just saying, if you guys do not know who Nabishin is in Excel Saga, I mean that's probably what you should do for homework after this.
He's in all anime from that studio.
It's true. He's everywhere.
Nabishin is everywhere. He's also in Puni Puni Poemi, which doesn't exist. Don't watch it.
Okay.
No, but what I meant to say is when I watch Neon Genesis Evangelion now and I see Shinji standing on the train station for minutes and nothing happens. It's just a still frame with too bright light and loud cicadas. It just gets funny at this point. It's not sad and depressing anymore and dreary and pressing. No, it's just, you know, these jokes that go on too long and become funny because of that? Where someone like barfs for 3 minutes? That's what these scenes are now to me in Neon Genesis. I found them emotionally amazing when I was a teenager. Now I look at them and think, what the fuck are you doing?
Okay.
Because I think it's really important to understand that localization is the translation element that allows anything to be translated. And that includes words and phrases that don't really have a go-to English equivalent. And while words like honorifics and tsundere might be the first thing you think of when you hear this, you might be interested to hear that this also includes a lot of words that seem as commonplace as hi, but that's a whole other can of linguistic worms. So then, if localization can be so important, then why does it freak so many people out? Why are there so many people so horrified by localization, even though it goes hand in hand with translation, to the point where they insist on supporting translators and not localizers? Well, in addition to the fact that obviously there's a lot of people who don't really have a firm grasp on what localization is and isn't, it's extremism. More specifically, it's for kids, an entertainment company that dubbed several anime in the 90s and early 2000s, which includes, but obviously isn't limited to, a lot of the most popular anime from the time. But despite the fact that they haven't been relevant in about a decade, that doesn't stop people from constantly bringing them up in debates about translation, no doubt because of how unforgettable a lot of their creative choices were.
You look kind of down, Ash. Huh? Have a donut. That always cheers me up. Pika pika!
These donuts are great. Jelly-filled are my favorite. Nothing beats a jelly-filled donut.
We remember so clearly for the same...
Man, Brock, just say rice ball. Just say rice ball, Brock. No.
Yeah,
you know what? Say what you want about the 4Kids dubs. They were at least somewhat endearing in their badness.
Now that we have rice balls in every corner, it's kind of funny to see that.
I would still say that is bad, but it's well intended.
Yeah.
I think that's as much as I hate it. I think compared to the problem that we are facing in the present day is this stuff was done out of incompetence, but good intentions, failed good intentions.
Yeah, because
what we have now is just malice.
Yeah.
4Kids' justification for that line was that kids in the West didn't know what a rice ball was.
At the time.
No.
Yeah. Maybe
we had rice dishes in those times.
Maybe we had an aunt who made a donut in the shape of a triangle one day because she didn't know how to bake. Or like, okay, maybe it's possible they wouldn't identify a rice ball as a donut. But nowadays you have like all kinds of cuisine on every supermarket.
In the 90s, we had my brother brought this recipe from South Germany and wanted our grandmother to make this, and she tried and she just couldn't figure out what was missing, because in South Germany they made milk rice cake.
Oh, interesting.
And he said it was absolutely amazing. And our grandmother was an amazing cook. She couldn't get that to work. I would have loved to try that because I never found it again. Yeah,
they still use vinegar for their rice balls and normal sushi, but I've never seen with milk. Yeah, that's different.
No, you don't know milk rice?
No.
It's a famous German dessert. Kids love it.
Oh, interesting. Like porridge or what?
No, well, you make you know how you make porridge not with water but with rice. Porridge with milk instead of with water.
Oh yeah, of course.
You do the same with rice. There's a specific type of white rice that is especially good for working with milk, and it has a great consistency where you get a like almost like a thin pudding like consistency between the rice corns.
Yeah, no,
so there's quite a lot of space between the rice corns, but it gets a natural consistency. It's great.
I have a few relatives who love rice pudding, and I've made it with like creme anglaise and the custards and other things to sweeten it up. But yeah, no, it's simple. It's not too hard to make.
We also eat that as a soup, and then have like a fruit on top, like strawberries or such.
Okay. Anyway, super chat from Chris Tutu. Thank you, sir. That's a big super chat. The not surprising thing about all of this, that these are the same people who would decry whitewashing. It's only when the whitewashing would support their worldviews they claim that their former allies are now the villains. Maybe they would support blackwashing. I don't know if they would support whitewashing per se. That would be weird.
No, because I think what he's trying to say is something similar to, they always complain about cultural appropriation and cultural imperialism. But this propagandization of Japanese media is exactly what that is. They're appropriating anime to put in their ideology,
right?
And the cultural imperialism is to try to tell Japan that they should do it like this and adhere to socialist bullshit by falsely calling it Western sensibilities or modern audiences.
Yeah,
and these are just buzzwords that really mean socialist propaganda.
Imagine people trying to take like Sherlock Holmes or Shakespeare or any of these great stories we've had for hundreds of years and just turning it into something it's not. And that's kind of what happened with the BBC with the new Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch version, where it started off like a pretty good premise. Everything was modern, and then it just started adding crazy, stupid crap like he has a sister, and her sister's a super genius and even smarter than him. And you're like, okay, this is...
She's smarter than Mycroft.
Yeah, that's like, okay, we're going too far. So
she plays the violin better than everyone else.
No, it's once you get to that level, I couldn't even get past season 3, I think. But once you get to that level,
and everybody's gay,
where the BBC is just constantly injecting their, like, we gotta have to have like more mixed race couples in the story, and it's
they added a woman, made everyone gay. And it got lame.
Anyway, this is the same reaction that anyone would have to their heroes, to Superman, to anything in the past 100 years that everyone knows and loves, and then just twisting it to this weird dimension that it does not belong. So the Japanese go, "What are you doing to our culture? This is silly."
We are going, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, that too.
Japan, save us.
Consider them a typical example of what localization looks like, because they're an extreme case.
Oh no!
They're an outlier. In fact, I think they would only loosely qualify as localization, since the primary goal of 4Kids' work was never to preserve the original. It was to make it palatable to a young American audience, which means conforming to the rules of American TV, which, in case you don't know,
the poisonous
can be very
suction
strict
cups.
in what is and isn't allowed if you want to maintain a...
Wait, but American kids watch cowboy stuff, so why can't I see a cowboy hold a gun to another cowboy's head, but I can't see an animated character do that?
The thing is there's also other kid shows that did have the violence in it. Like Avatar came out around the same time the One Piece 4Kids dub was coming out.
Batman the animated series.
Unnecessary.
Did anyone ever actually hit an Avatar, or were they just dancing around each other?
There was definitely some solid hits in Avatar.
I mean, Saka poked Zuko with a little boomerang there. Oh wait, no, that was the.
Oh, but that's
I don't think there was ever.
That's
I don't think there was ever any
always
blood in Avatar. I think that's really it.
Look, when it's comedy, the violence is always shown in US in US cartoons, because that's how Looney Tunes works. Because when it's comedy, then it's slapstick, and then people can explode because nothing actually happens to them.
Well, there was
violence
serious
is funny.
violence too.
Yeah, Avatar had a lot of serious violence.
Like they did actually show Zuko getting scarred.
think I can rewatch that show
Well,
at
but-
some point.
well,
It was
but
so long
this-
ago.
No, they showed it off screen. He got his face burned off screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of whether poison would be more effective in a low pressure system with a vacuum. Like, I don't know, like maybe a suction cup might increase the force of air pushing down on the skin.
Look, they could have poison dart toad poison on them.
Well, don't forget that the military also just used water guns in the show.
Don't forget the German Naruto I showed you.
That was barely.
No. That's so.
They
That
didn't even bother replacing anything.
that was straight up
they just
censorship.
erased.
Yeah,
They just erased everything.
remove objects from the freaking scene. You're like, what is happening? How is he standing in the air?
Yeah,
Yu-Gi-Oh! That sounds so much like Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they remove the fucking guns from the guys that come into Kaiba's office whenever Kaiba jumps out of the window. They're just pointing at him.
pointing fingers.
Yeah, come with us.
It was
or we'll
you!
wag our
It was
finger at
you!
They did the same thing with Bandit Keith too. He just
They did.
pointed at what's his
They
name?
do that in
Pegasus.
Dragon Ball as well.
No.
I thought the Red Ribbon
oh.
Army also did the pointy fingers.
One of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh censorships was it's when Yugi dueled the guy with the magician guy. Like their ankles were shackled, and there was in the Japanese version there was a spinning buzzsaw coming their way. But in the
Oh yeah, they just
the
made
4Kids
them like
version,
light
it
up
said,
and were like,
an energy disc. When it touches you, your mind will be sent to the Shadow Realm.
which is
Ah.
worse.
The Shadow Realm.
The Shadow Realm, the greatest thing that 4Kids ever created.
Oh dear. Let's translate.
But is it
this.
worthy of
The
the
Shadow
tune?
Realm isn't actually a thing.
No, they actually
No.
literally die.
They just died. There is no Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm is a lie.
Yes.
Yep.
That's
Merrick stabbed his dad to death.
That's better than the Naruto thing, where in German they just claim that Naruto's parents they went away.
Where'd they go to?
It isn't said. They went
Oh.
away, and
They
it's
all went
it's
to the
not said.
store.
It's not said in a way that they're not alive anymore. They left this world. It's said in a way like they left on a journey or something.
All right, then we
Naruto's
make a
parents
new
are
one.
fucking assholes then.
That's
They
why
s-
my question when I watched that had to watch that in German
Okay,
on TV. I always wondered why is he not going out to look for his parents? I thought that would be the story.
They sealed the nine-tailed fox inside of him, and then they walked out on him.
Yeah. Look, literally, as a kid, when I first watched Naruto on German TV, I thought, well, if his parents are gone, went away, why is he not going to look for them? He's going on adventures. Why is he not going to look for his parents? Yeah, because they're dead.
Sorry,
But
Naruto,
nobody
we're
told
going
me.
to Vegas.
That's really weird because, I mean, we also had a censored version of Naruto here in the States, but for the most part, it was pretty faithful. They just toned down the violence.
They
Yeah.
took
it
out
was
most of the
violent.
blood.
Kaiser, the thing is, at that time of German anime censorship was that our localization censorship companies took the American version and then further censored that. Which turns out that Naruto in German is incomprehensible. It is literally incomprehensible what's going on the screen, what is being said. It is incomprehensible. And that is why I completely understand parents from that time watching with their kids Naruto and going on, what is this anime bullshit? That's just crazy bullshit. Nothing makes sense. What the fuck? I don't want my kids to watch anime. That's just bullshit. That makes you dumber. Which, if
So
you watch
German
it like that,
Naruto
yeah,
is
it does.
just Coco Melon.
Yep.
All right, let's continue.
Point. You could remove scripts from the equation entirely, and 4Kids still has
Hey.
things like this going on.
Oh no.
There's a nickname for dubs that completely alter their source material like this, and it's hack dubs. And in case it wasn't obvious, yeah, rather than fully localized dubs, the entire 4Kids library is just full of hack dubs. And sadly, there's a whole lot of people out there whose view of localization has been soured by these hack dubs, but you just gotta remember that they're not emblematic of what localization is. Again, hack dubs aren't localization, they're hack dubs. Localization goes hand
I mean, it's still localization because they changed it to cater to American audiences.
Not to mention, almost everyone was happy when we learned that 4Kids wasn't handling localization anymore. And then we started getting shit like this.
Yeah, when you get
Also, the propagandization that we're getting right now, that's just hacked up.
well, no, when you get fan dubs doing things for people who actually watch these shows and they're better quality, you can call them whatever they're like, but people watch them anyway. I remember the arguments.
I
we
just
used to
call
have.
it a fan dub.
Well, yeah, we would have arguments in the anime club in university about like which one should we watch, like which version of Neon Genesis should we watch for.
What about the fan hack dub?
There was so many. Like I didn't know all of them because these guys knew all the some of the people in the dub, but like some of them were like so obscure that we had no clue. So they were like, okay, what's the most popular one and why? And well, it's because it's the fastest one, or they spent the least amount of time to release the fastest. You're like, all right, well, let's see how it did.
Yeah, speed dubs have their place, but they're not the ones that you take in the long run.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get things like the Dwayne translation of JoJo's.
I can't stand that translation.
That translation has some bangers, though.
Yeah.
It really does.
All right.
Hand in hand with. And in fact, the two really shouldn't be separated since localization is equally as important. Like I said earlier, it's what allows even the untranslatable to be translatable. Self-proclaimed purists may argue that, necessary or not, any changes made from localization still make a translation less authentic than the Japanese, and that they'd opt for a literal translation instead, but, you know, I really don't think you know what you're asking for when you ask for a literal translation, because believe me, you may think that you want one, but I don't think you actually want one.
Yeah, gaslighting.
I know what I'm asking for with that, and if it is preferable to your propagandist hack job, then I rather have that. I rather have the AI translated game translation than this. What game was that just made the characters non-binary?
What?
River City Girls?
No way, I think it was Splatoon 3. They did.
There were several.
Yeah, they did that with one of the Splatoon characters. They went, "Oh, this character is non-binary." No, it's not. It's a woman.
And then there was a sci-fi side-scroller pixel art game as well.
They did that with Hi-Fi Rush did it, but Hi-Fi Rush was technically made in both Japanese and English.
Yeah,
but
Xenoblade 3 they did that as well.
In English, Cinnamon is referred to as they. In Japanese, he's referred to with male pronouns.
Well, I remember watching.
He's a robot, though, so like.
Yeah, robot cat.
No, Cinnamon, the humanoid robot.
I remember,
yeah.
I remember watching they just did the anime version of Tale of Wedding Rings that came out this month, I believe, the winter season. And there's a thing where there's a line, because it's a romance story. One of the lines is "I like you," and you know it's about these two people and they've known each other for 10 years, whatever. And she's really saying I love you. But she's saying it in the way that she's bashful and being shy. So it's the way she's saying it that's like, okay, well, she's trying to say I love you, but she's literally saying I like you. But you know what's going on because of the way she says it. Like there's a little nuance to romance or when women talk, etc. So the translation is like, and it sounds like, but you know what she's really saying. So there's stuff like that where it's like, you know what, that's fine. But if you're paying attention and if you know the word like aishiteru, if you know what that means and the way she says like, oh, this is more than just the translation. There's more going on here.
In English, it is pretty common for people to kind of like lower the impact of their confession by just saying like instead of love. Right, exactly,
because the whole scene is her being defensive. Oh, I like you, but you know, not in that sort of way. Like, that's the start of a relationship usually.
I don't know about English, but we can do the same thing in German.
Yeah. It's very normal to have women express their feelings or men express their feelings in a way that's very defensive, even though they honestly mean something else. So that's a very human thing. And so long as you understand the nuance of how they say the words, not the word itself, then you're like, oh, I get what's going on here.
I would say, though, this points ultimately kind of a straw man. I don't think anybody actually wants a one-to-one translation. That's going to be fucked up.
Oh, if it's just well, the fandub will take more care. That is obvious. They do actual localization elements that she is talking about here. That is, she is saying the right things, but this is all done in apologia of the propagandization stuff that's going on.
Don't understand. I have to make all the characters.
That's all that is. That's just localization. No, it isn't. It is a hack job. And
you don't understand. I have to make all the characters introduce themselves with pronouns.
Oh God! And the thing that I can't remember what game that was, because the translation was so bad. The company did add an auto translation into the game that you can switch on instead. And the guy who did the hack job translation was furious because how dare they undermine his works, the company that made the game undermine his work so much. That was hilarious.
All right.
Pause.
The word structure, the characterization, the grammar, and the creative choices the author made simply can't be translated directly. Yeah, mostly. You will not be getting the experience that the author wanted if you directly translate. The direct translation should still be the basis of what you're going for.
Yeah.
And then you adapt that into what works right in your language.
If
that changes the content, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, this is a big difference between manga and anime because you have voice acting, because you have motion and people talking in motion. It's a little bit different than what is happening in, let's say, a manga panel, where there's a lot of leeway, there's a lot of freedom to stretch what's going on. So yeah, you do have to be careful, but I would prefer...
With a sub that still works.
Yeah.
You still have some of that freedom. But with a dub, you are extremely constrained because the mouth movements aren't made for your text. You have to adapt your text as well to the mouth movements.
Yeah,
and if you don't, it just looks horrible.
And there's sometimes improvements in the anime. I always prefer the manga where the translators take the light novel and say, well, in the light novel, this happens. And in the manga, they skip a paragraph or two or a few pages to explain, well, it's a lot more nuanced, but the artist decide to draw that as a series of panels, and then that gets further translated into an anime if that does eventually come out. So
I think this literal translation thing is also kind of a red herring because, all right, for example, nobody is going to actually translate Je suis femme from French to English and say, I am hunger. They're going to say it's I'm hungry. So nobody is making this point. Nobody actually wants the fucked up translation of words literally going one-to-one. They're going to want the I'm hungry translation.
It's very difficult with French because there's so many nuances to how they use a word or a series of words or a phrase that the rest of the universe is like, what the hell is the French trying to say to you? So there's 12 different ways. I don't know if you guys remember seeing all those funny French, English to French or whatever the sentences to French, where you can have a literal series of words or an entire sentence or paragraph of the same sounding word, and there's 14 versions of it. It sounds exactly the same, like tall to tall, tall, tall to tall. It's so, but there's languages like that, and it's very difficult to find the nuance, especially if you're going from. I can only imagine animated French shows coming to the east or even to the west to make it localized to English. So with Japanese, with Cantonese, with Mandarin, even with German, it's very literal. So the word itself is very literal, but the meaning behind the word is so much more nuanced that if you don't understand what the word means, if you don't understand the way they pronounce it, I don't know if you guys remember, what was that parody live action, the hero Yoshitaka, or what the hell was his name? It's almost like watching Dragon Quest. And what the hell is this guy's name? It's been a series for, I think, a few years. The Hero Yoshihiko. There we go. That's what it was. And there's so many, like, it's so funny to see, like, RPG jokes in real life. Like the Japanese, like, oh, yeah, we've had Dragon Quest for 40 years. Let's make some jokes about it.
I think I've seen that one. That's the one where the guy who licks his knife and he goes, I shouldn't have licked that. And then he passes out.
That's one of the many scenes. That's the most famous one. But yeah, like that's what I mean. Like there's so many nuances to the culture of just RPGs that for them to parody it is so like specific to that culture. And for us to get that, like you would have to do a little translation or else it wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise, if you try to provide some localization to that, it would be like, well, why is he licking a knife? When every time you see a villain or like a cocky friend of yours in an anime pull out a knife, he has to lick the blade. Like, oh, I'm a badass. I gotta, show off. I'm gonna cut your body up and lick your blood. And in this case, it's a joke because the knife is poisoned. So, yeah, so many nuances.
There's another thing about this literal translation thing that she's presenting here. It's one of the projects I have on hold. I hoped I got around to it last year. I hope I'll do it this year. I wanted to go over the subtitles, the English subtitles for the German movie Das Boot. You've probably heard of it at some point.
Yeah.
And because it's okay, some lines could be a lot better if they were more accurate to what's actually being said. If they were more literal than they are. And their slight adaptations are skewing some things. Some sentences are completely missing, but it's not that bad in that movie. But where it's really bad is at near the very end. There are two characters talking to old sailors on the boat, and in the English subtitles, it sounds as if through this horrible situation they're in now, as the ship is sinking, they think it's as if they're waking up from the ideology and what a bunch of bollocks it is. That's not what they're saying. These guys were never on board with the ideology. They just did what they expected to as sailors because they have honor as soldiers, as the Marine. And they just mock the ideology. They mock Hitler in general. There's no waking up from the ideology because there is further on in the movie, as the boat leaves shore, they have interactions with the young sailors, and they are more on board with the ideology because they went through the indoctrination process of the Nazi regime, while they didn't, and they talk about that. So that becomes clear that they were never on board with it, and they do see it as worrisome. That's why the line at the end doesn't even make sense in context of the movie. It's just there to please this American expectations of they're waking up from the nightmare. But that's not what's happening because they were never part of it. They just as the more so than the American soldiers. They just did their jobs. Because in the German military, you were conscripted, unlike the American one. But I digress. The thing is, the literal translation is where you need to start. If you don't even have that base text, you cannot adapt it into the other language. And the propagandists are deliberately doing away with that. They just do something else. Sometimes it's at least a similar topic. Lukua still retains the topic of it's something about sexual appeal, but that's the only thing that remains of the original text. The topic of sexual appeal. But the way it's done, it's inverted.
All right.
Other places, they don't even keep that. They just write random bullshit.
Here's Chris Tutu again for another obscure large amount of money. Thank you, sir. French Canadians still use Shaw when describing cars. That's interesting because Shaw is a telecom company in Canada as well. They don't have a word to describe cars, so they just hear car randomly inserted in sentences comprised fully in French since it's just awkward to use Shaw.
Well, the Maori word for car is boat.
Oh, really? Oh,
Everything's a boat.
yeah.
A train is a boat on rails.
When do we get Pixar's Boat?
Yeah, that's missing, right?
Will it have 5G enabled? That'd be nice to know. Yeah. Yeah. No. There's Rogers. There's Rogers Shaw. There's Bell. There's a bunch of others, but those are the two big ones. And Shaw is part of Rogers. So that's when everyone says Shaw, I'm like, that's a region in Quebec. No. It's a telecom company. No, it's a car. Like, what the f- are you talking about? Anyway, Canada's fun. Let's keep going.
In the same someone but not be listening to them, so too can you translate something but not understand it. And that's pretty much exactly what a literal translation is. Let's look at an example. A few months after Google Translate launched in 2006, one optimistic journalist wrote, "One day, people will only need to know a single language for access to everything on the internet. A service like Google Translate is a great start to that end." The year is currently 2020, and YouTube videos where people put text through Google Translate a handful of times and then post the wacky results are pretty much their own subgenre. So how is it then that a service that prides itself in its accurate machine learning can mess up so badly and so frequently? After all, shouldn't these accurate machine translations epitomize what it means for a translation to be literal?
No, it's because with every translation, context is getting lost, and therefore the text gets sillier and sillier.
I've used that for Mandarin. It works very well, actually. So depending on the nuance of the language, then yeah, it would take literal words 1-to-1. So depending on the word, like in English, it could have multiple meanings. But from Chinese or Mandarin or any other Chinese language, it's great. So
and it's getting much with what they call AI right now, which still isn't real AI, but what they call AI right now, the language models that these things use are so much better because they're working through multi-dimensional representations of what languages are. And the funny thing is that these models can predict what words in other languages mean without having been fed the dictionary, because if you make a let's say a three-dimensional meaning model and sort words of a language, then even English and Japanese, the three-dimensional object that generates of the word cloud, of all the relationships between the words, it looks almost the same. That's how similar the languages still are, because we build our languages still from the same base structure of how we look at the world. Even though the grammar is different, the meaning of words, the meaning making is the same. And that's why future translation software will be better.
yeah, the whole
Doesn't mean you shouldn't learn another language, because learning another language yourself opens up your ability to think differently.
Yeah, the whole appeal of ChatGPT is not that it gives you direct answers for questions, that it understands what you said or tries to understand what you said 10 minutes ago. So it has a memory of all these things. But we've had bots for decades. It's nothing new. It's just a combination of all these technologies on top of another that happen to work very quickly. So that's why people like it for doing searches better. If you want an actual answer instead of getting like best results on Google, that's why people go to ChatGPT or other machines like it. So it's still a tool. It's nothing spectacular. It's not going to change anything as far as my industry is concerned, which is anything.
I would suggest the following exercise to everyone: write a short and very simple 4-line poem, like just AABB, and then try to write the same poem in the second language that you know. Just try. It's an amazing experience, and it gets your mind rattling. It gets your mind working. It's fun. I find it fun, but I'm weird.
All right. We're at 9 minutes and a half. Not bad.
Well, actually, that's the problem. That's why the quality of Google Translate continues to be so dubious, because it is making literal translations. That's to say, it's making translations that don't take into account things like context and characterization, and instead just looking for the most likely one-to-one equivalent. And when certain words can't be found, well, they just leave them as is. And just so we're clear, this does not mean that a translation is literal just because you see some honorifics or a couple other Japanese words sprinkled around in there. Sometimes translators will leave them in, sometimes they won't. It's a really situational thing that can vary project by project, but we're getting off topic. That topic being that when things are translated literally, finding the closest thing to a one-to-one word equivalent takes priority over things like subtext, emotion, characterization, or any other element that might have contributed to an author's choice of words, effectively just throwing all those elements out the window. Especially when it comes to fiction, word choice can be, and in fact often is, perhaps the most important vessel through which a story is told. If nothing else, it's...
Here's the one of the problems is that I've seen some of these malicious translators even write on Twitter, admit that the first thing they do is throw the Japanese text into Google Translate and then use that as a basis for what they're doing.
Yes, Jamie Marchi pretty much confirmed that a good amount of their translators don't know Japanese.
Oh my god.
Well, then
What the fuck?
I remember seeing that.
Then seriously, that is just what the Japanese are now doing themselves and better. Because they're using AI that is trained for this job specifically, and they have human oversight that is more competent and less malicious than these hacks, absolute hacks and frauds.
Not to mention the AI that they're going to be using is created by a bunch of guys who came from Tokyo U and also took English to understand the language.
Yeah, because you need to thoroughly understand both languages, the one from which you translate and the one into which you translate, and know its nooks and crannies, know its cultural meanings and relationships and subtexts. There is so much more to that. Just between the translations between German and English, there is already even though these languages are extremely similar, there are so many little differences in which word to use when, or where English has a word but German doesn't, and the other way around. Like, what do you do then? Those things happen there. Like, there's an untranslatable German word that is used all the time, that is used daily, which is doch. Doch is untranslatable because it means several things at the same time. Like, when somebody you say something is so, then the other person says it isn't, and then you say doch, which means no, I am right, you are wrong. I am right after all. Or you can't do this, and you say doch. So yes, I can. I'll do it anyway. It's like in a one word anyway, basically. But there's more to it. It's like a triumphant and defiant word.
It's like some kind, like a multi-purpose counter word or a counter argument.
French has
it's an I refute your argument on the basis that I am right, so shut up.
French has ça va, which can literally mean I feel good, I feel bad, depending on how you say it.
Say what?
Ça va, C-A-V-A. It can mean I feel good, I feel bad, just depending on the tone of your voice when you say it.
Oh, interesting. I feel. I feel intonation.
Yep.
All right. Let's get going.
this first and focus on more often. Case in point, the way you interpret a situation when you read that someone dashed versus someone ran, that someone smiled versus beamed. Context can generally help someone decide between using words that are dynamic versus formal versus casual versus whatever else, but translating words literally just won't do that because literal translations, by their very nature, are devoid of things like context and characterization. And that lack of context is frequently going to end up being especially crucial because Japanese is a language that relies pretty heavily heavily on context. In short, literal translations leave you with only words, and not necessarily
It's not that
ideas
ours
behind the
don't.
words. At best, they'll leave you with a really awkward and dry sentence, but even that's pretty optimistic. There's a lot of irony at work when people claim that they prefer so-called literal translations because they feel it preserves the author's intent, because these are the translations that actually bleach out authorial intent the most. Obviously, jokes and puns and such are where this is the most obvious, but you don't even need to use them as examples to get this point across, since even regular sentences just sound like a mess when you use literal wording, to say nothing of the fact that they don't tell you anything about who's saying them and why, which can elevate some scenes and characters tremendously. There's a fantastic example of this in Sarah Moon's The Case for Localization video, and I'm gonna leave this video on the end card and a link to it in the description, because I would definitely recommend giving the full video a watch. Anyways, in the meantime, here's Sarah's example of this in action.
ああ、いいな。セーラー V ちゃんなんてさ、テストも関係ないし、悪者退治なんてスカッとしそうだし。それに比べて私は。ああ、いいな。セーラー V ちゃんなんてさ、テストも関係ないし、悪者退治なんてスカッとしそうだし。それに比べて私は。The cherry on top of the you don't actually want a literal translation sundae is that even if a translator and their
That's, oh god. Look, same example, German English. If I just word for word literal translated a German word sentence into an English or the other way around, it would sound similarly stupid. That's why we adjust the sentence structure and the grammar. And then, oh, magically, the context makes sense.
I gotta say, these dolls are like 10 times better than Funko Pops. Like, they're amazing. Look at those things. You've got
Anything can be better than the Funko.
I know, but we have all those stupid freaking things that, like, who buys those things? And then you have these amazing.
Yeah, and they have no soul.
Like
they're the brutalism of pop culture.
They're
Like,
black, beady, soulless eyes.
Yeah.
Neo-brutalism is a thing.
It's the epitome of normie nerddom.
Yeah. Soulless.
Anyway,
Soulless and everything the same.
the example she showed, I actually enjoyed both the translations. So, you know,
I'm sure enjoyment is what you can call it, yes.
yeah, I thought those are pretty good. Like, I understood what was going on, and I understood what she was trying to say, Usagi. So I was like, all right, yeah, fine.
Yeah, both translations seem pretty fine to me.
editor just say screw it and use a literal translation anyways, they do because the medium they're translating in just might not let one fit. Different mediums of translation come with their own challenges that'll often require translators, editors, and ADR directors to get a little bit creative, you know? In manga, for example, you have a very finite space for fitting the words, and dubbing requires syllables and mouth flaps to be matched. Just to make sure we're clear though, this doesn't mean that mediums that have less limitations like subbed anime and even visual novels to a lesser extent are more likely to be more literal, because they're not. Spoiler alert, they're all fully localized too. And you know, this is all to say nothing of the fact that sometimes Japanese rights holders will make specific requests for how certain elements are treated. And while this is generally stuff like how characters' names get spelled or what the title is, it can still be anything. And since these rights holders, well, hold the rights, their requests are treated like the word of God. So
Yeah, and it should be. That should be that way. It's
Yeah,
not just about
paying,
rights holders. It's about, like, at least in German, we do that on paper. It is a convoluted Gordian mess though. There is a differentiation between copyright, that's where you have the right to distribute and all of that inside of there, and you have the creator's right, which means that even if you give away a copyright, you will always be the creator. No one else can ever claim that you are not the creator. And as the creator, you have certain privileges that cannot be taken away from you. So under the German idea of that, it is not necessarily like that in the law anymore in all cases. It's a very complicated law that it's been over 10 years that I looked into it. It was part of our job back then. You would still have the ultimate say of what is and isn't part of your thing, even if somebody else gets the copyright for it and produces other shit, and you still have all the right in the world to say, that shit that they made out of my thing, that's not the actual thing. So if for example, if Star Wars was a German thing and George Lucas was German, he could say, yeah, but what Disney made out of it, that's all not canon. I decide what canon is because I made Star Wars. Fuck you. Fuck these guys. Even though they're the ones with the license to make the money.
In conclusion, not only are literal translations the weakest kind of translations, but also because they're intentionally devoid of localization, it can be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get them to even fit within the medium of whatever's being translated. In short, they're a bad idea on all fronts.
Well, the question is, did you choose the right words to begin with?
Okay.
And for that, you need already more than at least the old, just script model pseudo AIs. The newer ones can do that better, but I had mentioned that.
Okay, so at this point, we've talked about translation and why you don't actually want literal ones. We've talked about localization and how it's not actually as scary as most people think, meaning that, at long last, it's time to talk about...
All right. I gotta read a donation first from Gingaman, because of course he gave a donation for some reason. Thank you, sir. At least with translation inaccuracies from back in the 90s and 2000s, we sometimes get moments that inadvertently become more memorable. For example, the "You Spoony Bard" line from Tella in Final Fantasy IV. Well, this is the Ted Woolsey section of Squaresoft at the time, where I think he did about 3 or 4 major ones that everyone sort of knew about, and within a budget time frame sort of thing. So, I mean, I could remember things from Final Fantasy Tactics that made the original so memorable, and then the remake came out, The War of the Lions, on, I think it was PSP, that made it all Shakespearean. Like, they changed everything, but the story still flowed the same way. It just is a very different vibe, which both worked because of the style of the story itself. So when you have a good story with characters that represent the language very well, it makes perfect sense to go from a direct translation that's cut in a lot of ways, or one that it's embellished in a lot of ways. So it depends on the story itself, the characters, and how the language works with both of them.
Yeah, and my favorite example for that is the German translation for Secret of Mana, where the original, if you just translated the original, it would be quite bland. That's what the US version is. So all the names are very, very direct. You have the Wasp, you have the Tulip, you have the Lich, and the German version expanded on that, where you have the Fawn Wasp and the Vampire Tulip, and the Lich is called Tantalus, after Greek mythology, and leaning onto that. And there are also other parts where they injected some humor, which is the part that is criticized somewhat about that translator, because he wanted also to make it a little bit more lighthearted for the children who play it. For example, where you come back from the water temple and get ambushed by a couple moblins, and they capture you to throw you into a cook pot and eat you. They're cannibals, more or less. I mean, they're monsters, so they're not humans. So but they eat humans. And he added to that jokes about a German soap opera at the time, that they then left him cooking in the pot because they didn't want to miss the next episode of that soap opera, which technically doesn't make sense because it's a fantasy world. In the original, it's just that they capture you, and I don't remember why they go, but it's not for a joke reason. So that's a little bit of embellishment is done there. Some of the jokes don't really hit, but overall, you can make the product a little bit better, but you're not distorting it in a negative way. You can expand on it within a framework. With Secret of Mana, that worked very well. With other things, the way that the propagandists do, it doesn't, because they're not even staying in line of the idea of it. What do we have? Oh, it's a Dragon Maid example. People like to bring out their Dragon Maid memes nowadays. But one questionable line is hardly emblematic of the entire dub. Yes, it is.
It's not one line either.
Yeah, and why is the line there in the first place? Let alone the translation and localization industry process as a whole. Yes, it is. It is. Because if that one thing is there, how did that slip through? And why are there others? Why is this an industry-wide thing? Because you're trying to gaslight us that it isn't. 3 years later, we sit here and we know. We've seen it all. Or we've seen too much of it. I don't want to see it all. I don't watch dubs. But I see enough of the clips that you produce, and they just tell me, I don't want to see dubs. Your dubs are shit. Your dubs are atrocious. They're an insult to the audience. They're an insult to the creators, to the artists. They're an insult to Japanese culture as well. And Chung, as far as I'm aware, it's not a Japanese name. Is that a Wumao? Is he paid by the CCP?
If it's the Y Chang I know, he usually sings on YouTube. So I don't know why. Yeah, he sings Japanese songs and turns them into English ones.
Okay.
I mean, has he ever done work with dubs?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Because I know sometimes Funimation would reach out to YouTubers. I know they got Nate Wants to Battle to do one of the songs for Dragon Ball Super.
I don't know, really. I've only heard of his YouTube stuff, so.
All right.
Overseas anime fans saw tons of blatant censorship in anime back when
that doesn't make the shit now better.
In the 90s and early 2000s. This includes, but obviously isn't limited to, one of the most ridiculous instances of LGBTQIA plus erasure in television
history. Oh,
history.
shut up with your extra letters and symbols.
We grew up together. Huh? We've been inseparable since we were born. We can almost read each other's minds.
Like best friends? They seem to be very good friends.
But in the post-4Kids world, where hack dubs are exponentially more rare and companies generally worry less, if at all, about conforming to TV rating rules, the nature of what censorship can look like in translated media, but anime especially, has changed a lot. Specifically, we're going to talk about censorship as it relates to translated scripts. Visual censors or content changes are a whole other can of worms. But anyways,
this
for a
is
lot
also
of people,
censorship. It's just
the
a
turning
different
point
kind.
for the next era of censorship in anime was Funimation's Prison School dub. Specifically, it was an instance where Gamergate was referenced.
Whoa, pump the brakes, Arthur Fonzarelli. Have you got a stick up your ass? Or are you one of those dumbass Gamergate creep shows?
Yeah, not a lot of people were big fans of this, and they claimed that Funimation was needlessly injecting politics into their translations. The controversial line was
it's not a claim, it's a
eventually removed in
fact.
later releases, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people forgave them for this.
Have you got a stick up your ass? Or is that your pathetic attempt at talking to an older girl?
In fact, it actually had the opposite effect. Moments
Well,
like
he
it and
shouldn't have done it in
Dragon
the
Maid's
first
infamous
place.
patriarchy scene seem to be at the root of a school of thought that started to emerge that this is censorship that's meant to promote a left-leaning political agenda, and that it's an industry-wide problem that happens fairly often. Or at the very least, that it's a problem within Funimation, who, in fairness, is one of the largest influences within the Western anime industry.
It's a problem with Crunchyroll, too.
Oh, those pesky patriarchal societal.
The two are one now, so
I changed
yes.
If we're gonna be totally honest here, not all, but the
Also-
overwhelming...
Also, should be noted that in both of those examples, the person saying the line changes was Jamie Markey.
Go figure.
She also wrote these changes?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, she wrote the Dragon Maid one because she literally.
And somebody greenlit it.
Prison School is different. At least according to Jamie Markey, the guy who wrote the line was Tyson Reinhardt. However, Jamie Markey herself was the dub's head writer. So, in other words, she knew about the line change and she approved of it.
I mean, all of these people are friends too, so they all think the same.
Yeah. Back when the controversy happened, Jamie Markey straight up used Tyson Reinhardt as a meat shield. And
hype.
Tyson, being a little soy boy he is like, yeah, that's right, I did do that.
Well, Jamie Markey also uses a lot of other people's meat shields as well. It's just until they get their turn.
I mean, until she gets everyone's meat?
I wouldn't be surprised if she spends a lot of time under everyone else's desks.
Or if you're a bigger coward, you hide behind the public broadcasting stations.
Okay, let's continue.
Are made in bad faith, as evidenced by the fact that time woke language makes its way into a translation. Example A.
Wait, did she say these accusations are in bad faith?
Well, yeah, because these people aren't going to put in fucking conservative language because they're not conservative.
How are these accusations in bad faith when you just showed us the examples of them being there and being done and showed us several of them?
I want to know what conservative language is.
They only call out the woke ones since they're the only ones that are going to be put in.
Would conservative language be like religious ideas? Like, what would you do? How does that work?
Yeah, well, the thing is with these run-of-the-mill anti-tubers is that they would never challenge Big Daddy Corporation. They might jab at it a little bit, but they never actually challenge it.
All right.
Hey, the word misogyny is too political for anime. Example B.
Yes, it has no place there because
doesn't
Japanese
belong in
don't
the
use it. It's not in the original text. Nothing even remotely like it is in the original text. And there's no LGBT community in the original text. Nothing even remotely like it. And you only talked against literal translations to have an excuse to inject this bullshit and pretend it is localization. Although it fits exactly your definition of hack jobs. This is a hack job, and you try to sell it to us as localization. It isn't localization.
Yeah.
You fucking scum liar.
When we say misogyny, that's a very specific context within an academic realm of a certain conversation of that genre of learning. When we say you hate women, it's like, yeah, I hate some women, I hate some men too. It's very specific to individuals, but I wouldn't characterize that as I hate women as a whole. So we can love and hate people, that's fine. But when we have this generic term that's been buzzed around for decades, the past 10, 20 years, it's sort of like, okay, here we go again. And she's trying to defend this word as something
and especially since these people, they only complain about imagined misogyny. They never complain about the actual misogyny they bring into
within the context of ethics, within the context of morals. Like, what are we talking about here? This is where we talk about these topics.
How about in the context of the rape culture they accuse us of, but is actually practiced by the very people they force into our countries by opening our borders?
If it was a law class,
you want to talk politics? Talk politics.
Yeah, if it was a law class or some sort of morals and ethics class that we could go into that would affect the interpretation of a law, like a tort or something, great, go for it. But when we're talking about entertainment, unless the story is about lawyers or, I don't know, maybe a medical drama that might have these issues pop up, there's no need for these kinds of words in translation. It doesn't make sense to have that. So... Again, unless there is a specific story about lawyers, I don't even think there is. There could be in Japanese, or they call it lawyer drama. Maybe you would have that.
No, you do.
Yeah.
Another example would be that Ghostwire Tokyo, I think it was, where he had the all properties theft translation.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, it got taken out, I think.
They just put communist garbage in there?
Yep.
Is it like the most blatant one?
It was Ghostwire Tokyo.
Oh, yeah.
The Tingo game.
Yeah, it got taken out.
Joe Crazy says in the chat, the translation here would have been old-fashioned and not misogynistic. So they replaced old-fashioned with misogynistic.
Oh.
Those are two very different things. And where then is your feminism? Where's your critique of Islam? Where is it?
Okay.
I'm waiting. You keep complaining about Catholics, but man, the Muslims that you brought in here, they're that on steroids.
All right.
Thank you.
Here's Chris Tutu one more time. Thank you, sir. The Sailor Moon one counters their whole rage. It's localizers using their personal belief for their localizations. They localized lovers to cousins, and they hated that as a bad localization change. Did they? I don't know. This is back in the 90s.
That was done for Western sensibilities, don't you know? The same excuse that they use now to make everyone gay who isn't.
Well, this is during the time of they had to put morals at the end of every cartoon. Even the 80s did that as well. So Sailor Says had to have some moral equivalent of what the episode was about, and what did Serena learn, and what does it mean to have a brother, or treat him right. So these sensibilities they had to throw into cartoons so that parents could feel good about their kids leaving them alone in front of the TV for a few hours.
The thing is, homosexuality wasn't an open topic back then here. In the same way that it was in Japan. And in Japan, it also was mainly in media. It wasn't something you went about openly.
Okay. Here's Keyblade Overlord. Thank you, sir, for the donation. I will never forgive Jamie Marchi for her role in trying to ruin Vic Mignogna's life, and all her bullcrap she does in these dubs makes the hole she digs even deeper. People like her that shove their politics into everything can rot for all I care. This is an issue we've seen the past few years, or past 7-8 years rather, that they sort of lean into the frame a bit more that they shouldn't belong into, and it's fine. You could have, we've have people I like that are way too politically influenced or talkative, that if they just didn't open their mouths, I'd respect them a lot more, because no one wants to hear the opinion of someone who's not of that specialization. Like, I don't need to hear the politics of my plumber, or the cooking skills of my plumber. Like, I don't need to know those things unless they're excellent at it, right? So it's kind of sort of information you don't want. It doesn't matter what the information is. We could talk about any topic outside of the thing. Like, if I suddenly started talking about cars, you'd be like, what the hell are we doing? I thought we were talking about anime.
Ironically, Vic is one of the few voice actors that did that. He was a hardcore Christian, but he never proselytized or anything.
Yes, exactly. And usually because religion, politics, these are personal, especially to Americans, they're very personal. So for people to be like, oh, I am born again, it's like, okay, great. You're in the wrong time and place for that, sir. Keep that in a church, keep that with your family or your friends. We don't need to know your personal life or your personal beliefs. That's great that you believe that, but to have it in the media is a no-no. To have it in an interview is fine, but I think your time.
At worst, he invited people to stay after panels and stuff and pray. I think that was really it.
Really interesting.
The thing Jay Jameson said in the chat, remember when the gaming community told the Christian pearl clutchers to fuck off in the 90s? Too bad they didn't do that to feminists in 2010s. The thing about that is that only worked with the Christians, or the conservatives in general, but mainly the Christians, and a subset of the Christians, the really crazy ones that were similarly narcissistic, emotionally immature as the SJWs are, which they don't like to hear, but it's true. The difference is the Christians weren't subverting the institutions. They weren't actively moving into the institutions of the video game industry, of localization, in order to change them from within and put their propaganda in and distort everything, because we would have had the same effect, just with a different topic back then had they done that. The socialists, however, have that as part of their ideological strategy for almost 100 years, that this is what they do. They infiltrate, they subvert, they infiltrate, and then they change things from within. They corrupt things like viruses, like autoimmune diseases. And I can say that not as an insult and sound like a Nazi, because they write that about themselves in their academic papers and are proud of it. They say, these are the strategies we must use. We must act like viruses. We must act like cancer. So when you call SJWs cancer, you're not insulting them. You're just describing them as what they want to be. And they don't care if they kill the host, because that's part of it. Okay. That is the insanity of this. I wish I was making this shit up. Right. And I want to know what the line that we currently see on screen was in the original, because this is nothing but propaganda. This is an advertisement.
So, Wisp, you're talking about the AI Somnium files?
Yes.
That's actually in the game.
That is in the game?
In both Japanese and English.
That is in the English? The Japanese?
Yes.
That advertisement? That is complete... complete
But
bullshit? Because rich in sensibility, I'd say in lack of skin... Lack of thickness of skin, excellent taste. I wouldn't say that, because I've seen the ugliest and most distasteful people doing the most distasteful and ugly and repulsive things with themselves as with art, as with clothes. Only in this subculture.
So
there are some good artists there, but man, the majority. It's just bloody diarrhea.
So the character Mizuki is talking to is called Mama in the game. And every time that somebody refers to him as a lady, he just says, "Who are you calling a lady?" Because he dresses up like a woman, but he doesn't refer to himself as a lady.
Oh, it's a man in drag who insists to being a man.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't call that character transphobic.
Well, that's funny.
Also,
That's what they usually do.
The character Mama doesn't have anything to do with the plot. You go to him every couple times just to get some information that is kind of irrelevant to the entire plot of the game.
Well, that character kind of seems like a trope you usually see in Japanese stuff.
What's the context of this line? And is that sliming up to this character?
It honestly just comes out of nowhere. Like, it has nothing to do with what happened before or after.
So it's already it's already a Japanese subversive communist agent that put that in there, most likely. Because they do have that in Japan. It's very few, but they are there already.
Some of these in-house translations have the same translators coming over and working in that place, and they'll be like, well, we want to put this in here, so you have to put it in the original Japanese because that's the rules.
Yeah, Cyrek said this line is also in the Japanese version, and it's similarly misplaced there.
That's what I said. That they're basically
that's not a translation issue. Then
the translations have to be the same.
Yeah, but that's not a translation issue. Then that means that in the original there's already an ideologue writing the text.
The English and Japanese scripts were written at the same exact time.
The localizers can force them to put things in, basically.
It was
putting it in the localization.
Dude, it's put in by the localizers.
It's again, the scripts were written at the same exact time, so the localizers for the game were working alongside the Japanese devs as well, so they could have forced it.
Oh, you mean that the English writers forced it onto the Japanese?
Possibly. Not gonna say yes or no, but possibly.
Okay, that could make more sense.
I will say it's more than likely what happened, but not what definitely happened.
Okay. Anyway, we are 17 minutes in. We're probably going to end around 20, 21 minutes. Just already halfway done. And I think
just getting into the meat.
Yeah, I think we're gonna guess where she's gonna go with all this. So
we must do the crazy last minutes.
Oh yeah, okay, we can do that. That's fine.
But not now. First, we continue.
This got a ton of backlash because a lot of people thought that this compliment toward the LGBTQIA+ community must have been shoehorned.
Bullshit.
No. It says
with the extra letters.
It says LGBT. I don't see the IAQ+ shit.
Yeah, here she's over localizing the localization.
So what the fuck is this ugly shit on this? This is just you're not part of the.
I feel like
this is some disgusting British drag show.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm watching It's a Gundam.
Yeah, Gundam usually puts these in his videos.
Okay.
That makeup is so repulsive.
This Japanese version.
LGBT の人って感性が豊かでセンスがあって芸術的な才能のある人がたくさんいるでしょ。それに人よりも苦労してるせいか共感能力が高くて優しい人が多い。
What? They share a common struggle. No, okay, this is communist language. When they talk about struggle, like my. That's what Hitler talked about. My struggle. That was the title of his book if you translate it to English. They always talk about the struggle. And that's why they put everything into a group. You have a group struggle. You have a class struggle. That is how you know this is communist language. This was written by the commies in the project.
Is that common struggle being the last of your kind, or?
It makes them more sensitive and capable of sympathy. No, it doesn't. There's no more narcissistic and psychopathic and histrionic and borderline group demographic on the planet than the LGBT whatever bullshit you add to it. So there are good people in there, but they are the exceptions. The mass of them is absolutely horrible, crazy, abusive, psychopathic narcissists. This is the worst of the worst. And I can say that because I had to hang around with these people.
I looked it up.
There are good exceptions, and there are some on the server as well. But too many of them are just fucking crazy shit assholes. And they don't have taste.
I looked it up to see who wrote this. All right, it's by the same guy who did like the Zero Escape series, so 999 Doors. And I've played his other games. This kind of stuff isn't usually in them, so I feel that kind of confirms the theory that the localizers in the room told him he had to put it in there.
Yeah, and especially
the game, so they aren't known for this.
And especially this last line, that's why so many of them are kind and caring. That is also wrong. The majority of them, like in the male homosexual category, there are so many pedophiles hiding in that. It is scary. That's not all homosexuals, but men are there a lot, and they are using the normal male homosexuals as a shield. And it is disgusting. And sorry, I need to get this out. And the female homosexuals, the lesbians, that is the demographic with the highest level of domestic violence. You talk about kind and caring? If they were kind and caring, this stuff wouldn't be going on. But you don't like to talk about that. You just like to paint this rosy, happy rainbow picture where everything is awesome. It isn't. And if you are not able to talk about that, then you are an enabler. And I am at the point where I am short of classing enablers as worse than abusers. Because if there weren't all these enablers around, the abusers wouldn't stand a chance.
I've also seen a very big, in the lesbian community, there's a very big problem with essentially nice guys, lesbians.
The fuck is a nice guy lesbian?
Lesbians that act like nice guys.
It's Boxing Day every day with them lesbians.
All right.
No, they don't. Oh god, they have a strong backbone. No. It's everything of this is wrong. Everything of this is the inverse of what's really there. Oh god.
God, this speech is so bad.
Because of all of that, I really respect them. They even kind of cool. This is disgusting.
We'll be the last of your kind. We're cool.
You're trying to put this as being incapable of having a family, incapable of forming emotional bonds, incapable of empathy with most of these. You want to present that that's cool. Be like that. Be like them. Go there. Go to them and go into the trap and be abused by them. This is very hard to find. The good gays have a really hard time finding monogamic partners because most of the gays are just fucking around because they cannot build emotional bonds. They are something in their psyche prevents them from being capable of that. And the few that are, they are very, very often very depressed because they try to find a good partner. They hope the next one stays, and then that guy just fucks around again, betrays them again, and it's just the whole thing over and over again. And that's also why sexual diseases are so rampant in the homosexual demographic. It's not because of stigma. It's because they can't fucking form emotional bonds and be monogamic. It's because everyone fucks with everyone.
This is also the very epitome of a propaganda, blatant soapbox speech.
Yeah.
just being
What is the age
inserted
recommendation
into a
for this
random.
game?
Huh?
What is the age recommendation for this game?
What's this game?
18's
What's this game called again?
AI,
AI
the
the
Somnium
Somnium
Files.
Files.
Yeah, what did you say, Cyril? What's the age?
18.
Okay, at least that.
Yeah, generally, all of these bad faith criticisms absolutely crumble.
No, they don't
But what was
crumble.
bad
You
faith
used
about
an,
Dragon
you
Maid?
used another malicious example.
Wait. She's talking about translation, and she's right that this is the same text, so that's fine. But it's not.
Yeah, but it comes from a malicious trick, which is
Well, that's fine, yeah.
likely
But-
the English forcing it onto the Japanese, but then we're back again at cultural imperialism,
Right, but we're
which
not.
the left is allegedly against, except when it's their culture.
We're not saying
I mean,
that
maybe there
the
could
text.
be, I was going to say maybe there could be crazy leftists over in Japan.
Well,
you know,
yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
we're not criticizing the content of what's there. We're just saying that she's just saying the translation is accurate. And it's like, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, but she's deceptive about this point.
Well, because she likes it. That's fine. We know her bias, but
Of course, she likes it, but she is deceptive about the origin of this text, and therefore says, "Oh, because it's in here, because the propaganda is in here, and it's also in the Japanese. Therefore, it's okay to put the propaganda into all these other lines." That's her line of argumentation.
In the face of their scenes text, or even just a proper understanding of things like translation and the dubbing process, which, as I mentioned earlier, requires mouth flaps to be matched. In fact, if you want to learn more about this issue as it relates to dubbing anime specifically, I would highly recommend the Cartoon Ciphers, our English dub censoring anime video, which, you guessed it, I'll leave on the end card and in the description. In any case, yeah, the House in Fata Morgana, Bofuri, Telovru, these are only a few of the many instances of bad faith accusations that crumble when you learn about things like context and the translation and dubbing process. So at this point, you may be wondering,
to love Ru, really? Okay.
Okay, but once again, what about the dub of Dragon Maid? You're just tiptoeing around it.
Which also a translator on X has already shown that that line could have been translated better, even with all of this taken into account.
Mm-hmm. Also, totally overlooking the fact that Skate the Infinity had its dub completely contextually changed two characters as gay lovers when in the actual story they aren't even in a relationship, they're just good rivals.
That's great. Oh boy.
Just don't inject your bullshit. If I see this horrible pastel colored excuse of a flag at avatars, I know they're full of shit.
Jesus, what? How many fucking emojis do you need in your goddamn name?
It's a Canadian smut. There's a leaf.
Oh yeah.
So it's your problem now.
Technically,
it's your responsibility.
Technically, they could be Mexican or Japanese or.
Oh no! Don't you try to.
Or whatever sunflower represents. I have no idea. Anyway,
that's
you know
being,
what you must do.
Being a Maoist, I believe.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
A German Maoist.
They like Scotch, maybe. I don't know. They could be Scottish. Who knows? Anyway, doesn't matter.
Instances, accusations that crumble.
And some people.
Okay.
Okay, let's just say for the sake of argument that all of these are bad faith arguments. Once again, what about Dragon Maid? What about Prison School? What
Why
about
is it
the
there? Why-
examples you showed earlier?
Yeah, why do you put it there? Why are there several of it? Why are there more and more and more? And more?
Okay.
When you learn about text and the translation and dubbing process. So at this point, okay, so if bad faith criticism makes up the overwhelming majority of censorship and agenda
No, you are mislabeling it as you're misrepresenting it as bad faith criticism.
First of all, you haven't proven it's bad faith.
Yeah.
You haven't even proven that there is any bad faith because you haven't shown any.
You just try to discredit the critique, and you try to confuse about the topic and the critique, because you brought up yourself hack job translations, and your propagandist distortions are hack job translations. They do not adhere to being faithful to the original.
Well, the only example
that's what we want. We want
showed...
faithful translations. The faithful translation doesn't need to be literal. It probably can't be, because then we can't fucking read it. A faithful translation does not change what Lukua says into what the dub has made out of it. The same goes for all the other things.
The only example that she argued for was the YouTube clip of that AI game, and you can dislike a YouTube clip for all kinds of reasons. It has nothing to do with specifically, oh, this was a mistranslation. People just didn't like the scene more than the average. Like, was it 6,000, 7,000 views? Like, that's not really a very large number for figuring out who said what. Plus, there was only in the hundreds that there was a like and dislike ratio. So it's like,
and as we figured, it's a malicious argument, because this is not representative of what's really happening.
All she proved was that
cherry picking smart, and it's not even a real cherry. It's something that she painted on as a cherry.
All she really proved was that those people didn't actually know what occurred there. That was it. It's not bad faith to be wrong.
Yeah, she's doing this within the context of translation. You're like, okay, fine, maybe in that scene you're right. That was not a translation issue. But that's not what's going on with that specific story or scenario or whatever. She's using the backdrop of translations are misunderstood in trying to say, well, this is an okay scene, when there's probably this has nothing to do really with the context of what she's talking about. It has to do with content and whether or not a scene is good in a story. So there's a story makes sense, and I could dislike a scene in a story which has nothing to do with propaganda or this or that. Is the story good or bad? Why? And what characterization is working in that scene? But maybe this character sucks because of this reveal that we have in this clip. Maybe this character is going through conflict, and that conflict is represented in that scene, and that's the core of her character or whatever. That would be something to be noticeable about. But if you just want to say, oh, well, this is a mistranslation error, it's like, you're right, it's not, but it's still a bad scene. So we're talking about two different things then. And I don't like how this is taking place. Like she should be focused on, okay, this is not a localization issue. You're right. Next example. Let's keep going. Not let's talk about the LGBT blah blah blah. This is not helping the discussion at all. So anyway.
Keyblade Overlord in the chat said, someone actually confronted Jamie Marchi about the patriarchy line and even gave proper translation that kept the same tone as the original Japanese while still matching the lip flaps. Marchi kept going, my line is better.
Well, she also tried to lie about someone else writing it, and then someone proved that she lied about it. And she still tried to pull the shit, so...
I didn't do it, and I did it, and it's better. Great.
All right, we're going to go...
This is the narcissistic escalation.
Yeah, we're going to go for a few more minutes, then we're going to jump to the end, because I don't think the rest of the story, or the rest of this video is going to be very helpful.
I mean, we could just speed it up.
Just get over it.
Come on.
She's already talking very fast.
Oh.
Yeah, it might become incomprehensible if we speed it up
Let's
anymore.
try 1.5. Let's just see how this goes.
Then, well, what about the ones that aren't? What about things like the Gamer line or even Netflix Evangelion?
Yeah, get them out.
Well, different
Now she
translators
sounds like a
obviously
gender
have
bent
different
movie
opinions
blog.
on some of the more specifics of these examples. For the most part, the translation industry
How do we know she
isn't?
isn't?
In fact, as though to prove that, 2 of the 3
Touche.
examples.
Wait, I didn't understand that. Sorry, when you were talking.
These examples, for the most part, the translation industry aren't big fans of these examples either. In fact,
then why do they do it?
As though to prove that, 2 of the 3 examples that I just mentioned saw later revisions. Prison School, of course, I already touched on earlier.
They only saw the revisions because of fan outlash.
And Netflix Evangelion, or at least sort of, the "You're worthy of my grace" line was quietly changed to affection in the subtitles a couple of months ago. The dub still says grace, but it's nonetheless hard to imagine that this change was made for any other reason than the backlash that this line, more than the rest of the series, received. I'll direct you toward getting the
Kaoru is weird.
Robots Queer Erasure and Eva video if you want to learn more about that. Again, in the end card and in the description. But anyways, back to my main point. Almost every translator, editor, and ADR director that I spoke to was quick to point out that even if they wanted to use their work to promote an agenda, between the eyes of their editors, actors, directors, and the fans, it'd be extremely hard for them to get away with it, and that's to say nothing of the tremendous risk they'd be putting their career at. And all for what? To change the wording slightly in a single scene? To quote Nathaniel Hiroshi.
Yes. That's what they do.
Does she not understand?
Yeah, they do it because they can get away with it.
The Dragon
That's
Maid?
literally what they do.
How do you explain the Dragon Maid scene then? Like, how do you justify that? Say, oh, it's so hard to push your agenda. It's like they did.
And the thing with these narcissists is they see, can I push a boundary? Okay, I can push that boundary. I can go past this line. I can do my bullshit. Now I do more bullshit. Can I do more bullshit? How much more bullshit can I do until I'm being called out? Until I just rewrite the entire thing into communist propaganda?
Like, this is not.
And we are now at the point where the world says, Japan says, like not just we say, but Japan says, stop it, go away, you are out of a job.
Yeah, this is
if
not.
If anything, that AI Somnium point actually showed that they would go further.
Yeah, I mean, this is not
directly shoving it into the Japanese version.
This is not someone being lazy and going, oh, let's just get this job done and get the literal translation finished or whatever and push out the door. This is someone actively going, no. I want to use a line about the patriarchy. How do I do that? Let me read the entire script for the next season, see where I can do that. That they had to have figured something like that out in order to do that. They couldn't have just gone, oh, this is going to. It takes effort to do this. It takes time. It takes planning.
Yeah, and bring out not just propaganda by talking about Gamergate, but bringing out the propaganda about Gamergate. Not the reality of it. Which, as I need to remind you, was a woman who slept around with male journalists to get good reviews for her pseudo game. And people were a bit miffed about that this dares call itself games journalism. That's just corruption. If that happens in normal journalism, about normal world stuff, people should and would hopefully be as outraged. It's actually happening all the time, but people usually don't notice it because it's not that fucking blatant.
Promote an agenda, you need the story to support it on a thematic level. Otherwise, it's just a bumper sticker, and literally nobody has ever had their mind changed by a bumper sticker.
They don't care whether they change any minds. They just want their bumper sticker.
Again,
because they get off by the idea of having their ideology on the screen.
Does this person
tap to that?
Does this person they spoke to can explain the Dragon Maid line changes? Like, just explain that to me, how that happened then, because that's literally what's happening on the screen.
This distorting argument here is, because it doesn't work as changing people's minds, therefore it's not actually propaganda. Please ignore it as we keep doing more of it. Because what part of the culture war is? It's not just to change your mind, it's also to ruin your escapism. So that you don't enjoy your escapism anymore, so that you throw it away. So that you don't have any anymore. So that you can never relax. That you will always be agitated, you will always be anxious, and you will only ever encounter the fucking ideology. That you cannot escape from it, and that means when there's no escape, you will just roll over and let it happen and fuck you up your ass. That's what they want. They want you to give up against it. Because standing up against it, when you call it out, they start calling you names. And when you think, oh, this is everywhere, nothing can actually be done, although these are just a couple people. It's a couple people doing this. It's not a lot.
All right.
They don't want you to stand up.
We're at 20 minutes. We're at 1.5 speed. We're going to go for one more minute, because this is getting silly, and then we're going to go to the end and see what the summation of all this is.
It's coming from a business or a fan-subbing group. A translation is an interpretation of the original language. And by virtue of being an interpretation, even the best translations can never give you a 100% authentic experience the same way already knowing the original language can.
Which is no excuse for the patriarchy lines and those other shit. Go on.
I'm so tired of this
but
argument.
that's not necessarily...
Yeah,
no translation can be 100% accurate, so I can do whatever the fuck I want.
So I can do a hack translation. You are arguing to make hack translations. Now, after you condemned hack translations, you are pissed.
This literally justifies the 4Kids stuff she complained about.
This is under the assumption that people who watch Dragon Maid are left-leaning or whatever liberal-minded folk who hate the patriarchy. It's like, okay.
Yeah, but it's not about to appealing to them. It's just about to put the propaganda everywhere.
Yeah, but she's justifying that this is the mindset of these. Oh, look, they're translating it their best way. Yeah, to who? Who wants to hear that?
Yeah, this is not an actual audience, because this is just the best thing is it's pandering to the fanatics, to this fanatic little cult of crazy socialist feminist crabheads that jerk off to hearing the buzzwords, the political buzzwords.
It just means that when something is translated, there's always going to be room for interpretation, which is always going to put a bit of a disconnect between the versions in the original language and the translated language. This is also why different translators will hardly ever produce identical results. Things like their unconscious bias will come into play, which can only
Bullshit. Unconscious bias is disproven. It's an unscientific term.
So she's
not to mention, even if they come up with a different translation, it's probably going to be a similar one unless ideology is involved.
Yeah, if you watch this, I watched them both with the English as well as the subtitle for Knocking on Heaven's Door. The language is pretty straightforward. It's not that hard to follow, and there is some nuance there, but it's the scenes are pretty much the same. There's no real that I can remember of any misuse of language. So
I mean, you can kind of use the same thing with a lot of the older anime dubs where they had different dubbing studios do some of the dubs. Like Rurouni Kenshin had 2 dubs, I think.
Yeah.
And dubs were generally really similar.
Yeah, I remember because of Sailor Moon, like that was a pretty decent example because Serena talks a certain way and she's a young girl. The voice actress in North America, she had to do a little different nuances to make it. She was an older woman. She had to bring her voice down or bring it up rather. So she had to really express herself in a very bizarre way to make it believable that a young girl is speaking in English when she's actually speaking in an excited, happy-go-lucky sort of attitude in Japanese. So it was kind of fun to see her perform. Like they filmed her because she was doing all these movements with her body and standing up straight to get that proper sounds going. So it's difficult to do these things, but you have to get it ready for that audience. That's totally understandable, but you don't change the words around to mean something else like you do in Pokemon. But it's
the term I've been missing all this time from her is faithful adaptation, faithful translation, faithful localization. The word faithful has never come up, because the moment she would say that, all these excuses would fall flat.
Like faithful dubs being Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, Rurouni Kenshin, and the Ocean's dub of Dragon Ball.
That's why I initially called this out for what it was. She's basing this entire video off of a red herring and a straw man argument.
It's
obfuscation.
Giant.
Well, of course she has to. Otherwise, that would mean we have a point.
All right. We're at 20 minutes. Okay, we'll go for a few more, 30 seconds at least.
So, to sum up this section of the video, I guess, the presence of censorship and agenda pushing in translation is a pretty nuanced issue, because there's just never any 2 situations which are perfectly identical, and as we've already discussed...
That is not even part of the argument. That is not even the issue.
She's a liar.
Who cares if there's
things
not...
are extremely similar.
It doesn't matter if they're identical or not. You have examples where it's shown, where it was done. We could point to them.
The agenda pushing is there, and it's done for the same reasons, and it's done the same ways.
Translation isn't some machine process where every word will always fit perfectly. It's messy, it's misunderstood, and nobody's gonna get it right every single time. It sucks, but that's just the way it is.
Gaslighter.
Not all, but certainly most censorship and agenda...
Yeah,
Yes.
we're hitting the point where she's doing it's just a mistake, guys, gaslight that they always pull. This isn't a mistake. You're doing this on purpose.
It takes effort to specifically put in words that do not belong.
Gamergate didn't end up in the prison school dub by accident. It was put in there by someone who put it in there on purpose.
And who has a very, very skewed and malicious distorted view of what Gamergate is.
Yeah, you'd have to know the term. You have to side with one of the people on those sides. Say, oh, well, the women would say this. It's like, well, not really, but maybe the people who don't understand the term would. It's popularized. All their friends believe it. Let's use that. Oh, okay. Why? And then
or in that other dub where the guy called the people who go to, I think it was like a maid cafe, right? He called all the people who go there misogynistic.
Oh yeah,
because they like to see women degraded.
Okay, I don't know what she's bringing this anime up, but fair enough.
Censorship and agenda-pushing accusations are made either in bad faith or just from a lack of understanding. And also,
they're made factually accurately.
So sometimes people are just looking for an excuse to dunk on Funimation. Obviously, I don't have time to sit here and pick apart every single case of these accusations being made, but...
You didn't even try. This is just I don't have time. I'm making a 30-minute video on YouTube. You could make a 40-minute video on YouTube. You could make a 50-minute video on YouTube. You do have the time. You just don't want to take the time because it would disprove your whole bullshit argumentation.
I don't think people go out of the way to dunk on anyone for the sake of it. They do it because there's a specific reason, and it's obvious.
We don't need to take effort for has another word, Steilvorlage, where companies like Funimation, they're just giving us perfect setups to laugh about them. Just like Games Workshop is giving us perfect excuses to laugh about their absolute incompetence in regards to how to run a company and how to write their law.
Yeah, like when we talk about the craziness that's Bud Light last year. It's like it's obvious.
Or as much as I love Nintendo about laughing about them, just why don't you put your classic games on the Switch? You can easily do that, but you refuse to, and then you complain about people emulating them. It's the same. It's laughable. You give us a setup to not take you seriously. And that's all it is.
Another thing is that she's really paying attention to the Funimation part and the dubbing part. But these lines are making it into the subs as well. So, and they have been for years, even before the Funimation and Crunchyroll joined up together. Because that's where we got like sus in the Nagatoro sub. I mean,
yeah, I think Love is War referenced social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God!
Yeah, way to date the fuck out of your anime.
Hope enough knowledge to look at them more effectively when you encounter them. Much
No,
better
you're
understanding of
obfuscated.
translation, localization, and censorship, and what they actually are and aren't. Hopefully, you'll bring that knowledge with you next time you see a questionable translation. As a reminder, it's always
Gaslighter.
worth getting context before you judge whether or not a translation choice is particularly good or bad. But regardless of how you feel about a translation, you should still never threaten or harass the translators, editors, or ADR directors.
Is that harassment?
No, but you can criticize them. You can call out when they do deliberate bullshit, and when then they show that they are absolutely horrible monsters that are just entitled fucks who love to shit about other people's art to insert their own excrement.
This is a
they deserve to be called out, and they honestly deserve to lose their jobs because they're not doing their jobs. They're doing something else.
This is a Mountain Bailey in a way, right? Where she's like, "Oh, I'm not talking about people just criticizing. I'm just talking about the people who are harassing and threatening these people."
Yeah.
I'm assuming these people have social media accounts, therefore, they're easily to talk to. Like, what would we directly contact the contact form of the websites of these publishing houses? Like, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, why not?
Oh, remember also, since this whole thing started with Osmonagold covering it, Jamie's made like what? She went from making like maybe 5 tweets a week to like, I think 256 tweets in a day because she's trying to cover her ass so hard.
Didn't she flee the police at one point?
What?
It's something.
During the Vic trial, she was like trying to avoid getting summoned. I think
that sounds like she knows she's the bad guy.
You can't avoid a subpoena. You have to go.
That sounds like she knows she's the bad guy.
Oh boy.
Well, she was trying to make it so that the paper summoning her to the trial was like didn't get to her, so she didn't.
Also, no, you never get that.
That's not.
I'm sorry, that never works.
That's not how that works.
That
no.
legally doesn't work.
A subpoena is served, meaning an actual member of the law, whether it's a policeman or a lawyer, comes to your door, knocks on it, and says, "This is your paper, sir. You are being served papers to."
Yeah, they kept showing up and they couldn't get her to come to the door. That's what happened.
No. It's the same in my country. This mail is not delivered by the mail or any of these other weird services. It is delivered by a member, by a worker of the courthouse.
Well, yeah, she misunderstood it. They have to make a reasonable effort. It can't be like an unreasonable amount of effort.
Putting it in your what is it, mailbox is the reasonable effort served. Anything above that is insisting that it is personally handed to you in person, which for a subpoena is not necessary. That's not high enough. There are things where that level is required, but that is not that. Putting it in your mailbox is you got it. If somebody then fishes it out of it, sucks to be you. That is legally a you problem. That's what it is.
Okay.
Man.
Only is pointless and aggressive, but frankly, translators generally have enough problems even without taking into.
Then why are they on social media? You fucking narcissistic gaslighter. These people. You try to label critique as harassment. That's what you're trying to do here. Narcissists deserve critique. Malicious actors deserve critique. And they will always call all critique towards them harassment in order to play victim. They're perpetrators who play victim.
Yeah.
It's victim-perpetrator reversal.
She's just making a giant straw man. Like, okay.
Yes. No, she's just purely gaslighting now.
On the internet who probably haven't even familiarized themselves with the work that they're criticizing.
Translation industry thinks that you should actually be complaining about. Something I've been on for nearly a year is almost out, and the company still hasn't decided if I can say I worked on it or if I can put it on my portfolio. It's disrespectful and seems fully engineered to prevent career advancement. Andrew Hodgson. That sounds like a narcissism problem because here we have the problem of rights. Mike?
Let's go.
Oh, no, I'm just pulling out the middle name there.
Oh.
Steiner?
The magnificent Steiner.
You gotta read the whole full thing.
Okay.
Andrew Steiner.
All right.
Yeah, but if it's in ticks, then that means it's a nickname.
No.
Yeah.
So if he uses Steiner as a nickname, he's probably a neo-Nazi.
Really?
Haha.
Okay.
Gotcha, SJW. Gotcha.
Okay.
I can play that game too.
I just like the monster reference, but that's okay. Anyway, let's just keep going.
Alright.
While censorship and agenda pushing are definitely the most complained about aspects regarding the translation industry, they really shouldn't be, not just because, well, as I've hopefully just taught you, it's generally just nonsense, but...
What
Liar,
what is this?
Asshole.
This is so...
It is the biggest problem. You do not deserve credit for.
Who is she to say what should or should not be the biggest problem? If I have a problem with a translation...
Well, it's not a big... Because it's not a big problem, because she just told us that it's not actually real.
What she thinks
we
I care about,
trust our lying eyes.
What she thinks is important is irrelevant. This you don't get to judge someone else's opinions on whether it's good or bad based off what they don't like.
She's trying to brainwash us. Let's let her try.
This is so stupid.
Yes, of course it is. That's what brainwashing is.
Of the abysmal state of pay and credit within the...
Oh, you want to be paid for your malicious garbage work?
You don't fucking deserve more.
Wait, go back a second.
You should pay the Japanese studios damages. You shouldn't be paid. You should pay damages.
Yeah, don't complain about the big problem over here. Play about this other issue of payment. Like what? Like okay.
I want to be given more for my absolutely
atrocious about my shit localization. Ask them to pay me more.
The market rates are too low in this industry. It should be more. It's like okay, raise some money. Like what do you want to do?
We should make a union.
You start a Kickstarter
and then threaten to demonstrate to not work. and then you will be replaced by AI bots.
Start your own industry, or start your own production company that does this, and charge lower rates, and then see how well you do.
I'm more willing to donate to fan subgroups than want to see any of you being paid.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Maybe do what Vic did and be nice to your fans, and you'll get a lot of money from them when you appear at cons.
Yeah, when you are falsely accused in court.
This is a very weird argument in any industry, because when you're talking about, I should be getting paid more, it's like, well, why? What's the going rate? Why should your rate be higher? What's the big deal? Are you are you a voice actor? Do you do everything? Do you have your own equipment? Like, what is the point of...
They don't have an answer for that. They just want more money.
Yeah, like when I get a job, like obviously if I want a full-time job, I'll get paid less. If I move to, I don't know, Alberta, I'll get paid less because that's what the rates are down there. This is just basic market forces. It has nothing to do with what someone should get paid.
Translating 288 manga pages in 40 hours. I think that's possible.
Well, when you're talking about...
won't be a super high quality, but if it's just a text, if it's not also lettering and everything, that's done. That's easy.
We're talking about either you get paid on an hourly basis or a project basis. If you're doing part-time work, you always get paid on a project basis, or else you're always going to get shortchanged. This is basic stuff. It has nothing to do with the industry you're in. It has everything to do with, are you very good at your job? You get paid, or should get paid, in a contract by the project, not by the hour, because the best guy will be very fast and the job is done in a week and he gets paid nothing.
And if your work is actually good, you can go into negotiations and say, well, I want more for that because I need more.
Right.
I need more
and
to
this is the argument with
your fans shouldn't have to fight for that. You should fight for that.
Yeah, so much for these people having spines.
Yeah, this is the standard triangle of work. It's time, quality, and what's the other one? Time, quality, and cost. Thank you. You only get 2 of the 3. You can't get all of them. So the production designer or the guy in charge, the producer, will say to figure out what's the priority. Is it time? Is it money? Or is it quality?
Yeah, and what we see here is obviously cost and time, not quality.
Yeah, so if you understand these elements of a part-timer or of a contractor, this is not like this is a childish argument that someone who is not in the industry or in any industry wouldn't even start. So anyway, here we go.
It's extremely difficult to make a livable wage solely off of translating Japanese media. In fact, by the standards of most US cities, it'd be downright impossible for all but a small number of them. The Canapa Effect has an absolutely fantastic video that goes more in depth on this problem as it relates to Crunchyroll, who, while they're certainly not alone in hardly paying their
neither did doing a game master job for a Canadian company. You couldn't live off of that as well. Had I not lived at my parents' still at the time, I couldn't have lived off of that. You pay smart. Why are Canadian companies paying criminally low wages?
Oh God, this is a whole other issue in the inflation in Canada, how it affects.
That was
housing.
2007.
No, this has been ongoing since the 70s. Like ever since the original Trudeau spent all that money. It's called Trudeau, like dough as in money. Trudeau. Yeah. So
I calculated that out. I was actually paid $2.50 per hour.
Well, if you look at the chart,
I love the job, but fuck.
Yeah, look at the inflation rate of Canadian money over the past 70 years, and you see Trudeau, the original, just shot up like a rocket, and that's because his plan, as smart as he was to mortgage the future of your grandchildren, so they would be paying for the debt of today. And
yeah, that's just a standard socialist plan.
Pretty much. I mean, obviously other countries do that, but this was like the biggest example of that in Canadian history at the time. And it's ever, as all countries do, they all ever go increasing up and up. So I guess I'm paying for it now. I mean, I could have bought a house 20 years ago. Now it's impossible. So it's just the way that, like, if you want to talk about the 5 biggest cities that are North American cities that are expensive to live in. Number 1 is New York, and the rest are all Canadian. So it's
LA's not up there?
Nope. Top 5. Well, maybe the top 10. I don't know about the rest of California, but
and yes, Ego Dreamer, I chose that. That was deliberate. I had the opportunity, and I liked the job, and I would have continued doing it if the company hadn't destroyed itself through nepotism from within and turned into an absolutely crazy house. That's why I left.
All right.
Not because the pay was too low. And
Let's keep going.
Low, criminally low.
Translators by far the biggest offenders of this, with their standard pay being $80 per episode. This isn't only an obviously low number in general, but it's also nowhere near proportional to the amount of time
Says who?
goes into a single episode, which can range from a few hours to a whole day. And remember, a lot of
you don't get to say that. I'm sorry.
How many of these translators are solely doing translation either? A lot of the translators are also working on the team that's doing the voice acting. Not to mention, they're also using that to go to cons. They usually make money when they do that if they're good. So pretending that this is all they're making is dishonest.
Yeah, this is the same issue with the game industry. Oh, gamers or the game devs don't get enough money. It's like, okay, sure, compared to what? Compared to other industry execs in China and Japan? Like, what do you mean? What are you comparing it to? Other software developers? Like, what is the industry that is the standard for game dev or for web dev or whatever you're making?
80 a day would still be somewhat around minimum wage.
80 an episode, though. You could probably do multiple episodes in a day.
It depends on the episode.
I would imagine they would be probably doing.
Yeah, is this contract? Is it full time? Do they get time and a half overtime pay? Like, what's the rate? Like, I don't know. But who is she to say this? Like, what is this? Like, if you know the industry you want to go into, you know where you're going. You know what you're getting your feet wet into.
And certain industries that know their workers are there out of passion, they know they can pay them less because they will do it for passion, just like I did.
Anyway.
These are simulcast. So these translators are on a super tight deadline all the while. I'll leave a link to this video on the end card and in the description because I would definitely recommend giving this one a watch. It's extremely informative, and frankly, with Crunchyroll setting themselves up to be the largest name in anime-exclusive streaming, it's especially important for them to be leading by example. That being said, just to clarify, Crunchyroll is not the only company that's known for not paying their translators very much. Even
Yeah, because they need to fund their own really badly produced cartoon shit that is just more SJW bullshit propaganda crap.
Yeah, Crunchyroll really shot themselves in the fucking foot with that.
If they weren't doing that, maybe they could pay their translators better.
Not to mention
maybe they could afford people who are not just ideologues, but they're themselves ideologues, so they don't give a shit.
Not to mention a big part of Crunchyroll wasn't for them to get the money; it was for them to get money to the people making the stuff.
Yeah, it was supposed to go to the mangas, to the anime studios, and they're not doing that. So fuck Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll can go and die in a fire. We'll still get the fan subs. We don't need them.
God, pretty much any streaming service that you can think of. Translators particularly well. It's just that Crunchyroll here is a particularly appalling case. In fact, Canepa told me that in the aftermath of his video, which at the time of writing this has almost 500,000 views, translators have been sharing the video among their communities and prompted the sharing of even more information. In the future, more translators will apply for Crunchyroll while knowing that they're worth so much more. But I cannot talk about the low pay trend throughout the industry without also bringing up something huge that really hit the public's attention literally as I was wrapping up this.
You know what? If you don't like it, stop fucking working there. Go somewhere else. They'll either be forced to pay more, or they'll shut down.
Yeah, as I said, I'm willing to pay to donate to a fan subgroup to not have to deal with Crunchyroll's bullshit.
Yeah,
I know it will go to translators who actually like their job and take it serious.
Yeah, there's any industry that requires like language issues or skills. Like in Canada, it's French and English. You can go other jobs. You can become a teacher. You can do other things that don't require you to get paid less. Like this is why people move. This is why people have certain jobs and change their jobs because there's no money. There's no business. This is why people move to other countries.
With most jobs that have anything to do with art, you are very unlikely to make it a full-time employment thing that you can live off of.
Why would you make it a full-time?
Because they just want their life to be a party.
I mean, the only time you're going to be able to make this a full-time thing is if you get big, people want you to show up cons, so your job just basically becomes doing the dub and then going to cons.
They just
getting
want to
paid to be there because people want to see you.
Yeah, they want to feel like celebrities.
Yeah, I don't think
And they don't deserve to be there.
Well, it's a good thing when they earn it.
Yeah, I don't think
it's not a good thing
the best game
like
designers
Jamie who just want to be famous.
Yeah, the game designers, the game devs, unless you're like the guy who invented Doom or the Doom team, I mean, you're not going to make a lot of money.
No, but I would like, I can understand the whole voice actor thing, being on a panel or something. I cannot understand the translator being on a panel with the other translators.
Yeah, exactly.
Like those are not the interesting people. Like nobody. Like they do important. If they do good work, they do very important work. They do very difficult work. I can tell that from personal experience. But they are not interesting people to have on a panel.
Yeah, I remember
they're not supposed to be celebrities. That's just narcissistic crap.
Listening to the voice actors that they like. Elias Defexis is one example I know that he's in Canada. He does his own stunts. He does his own mocap.
I told you I'm busy. Sorry.
Like voice actors, they want to act. They want to do everything because they have the range. They went to school for it. And voice acting is one of those jobs where they can apply themselves in an easier, simpler fashion that's not too expensive. Sometimes they have to fly over to places to do all the voice work because they want them in studio. But that's the job as an actor because you want to act. And sometimes that's the only job you can get. So great for them. Fantastic. You can get into anime, you can get into animation, you can get into movies for kids, you can do video games, you can do all sorts of stuff. So as you go lower in that realm, you get paid less. Like musician is probably not the best paid in the entire. And of all the video game people I've seen, music is probably the least paid, or sound design even. And sometimes the sound designers are musicians. And I think all of them I've met that are into sound, they're also into like making their own, was it pipes, their own speakers? Like they're really into vinyl. Like if you're a sound guy in game design or gaming at all, you're into music, you're into hardware, you're into software, you're into going to clubs. Like everything is surrounding that world. You're not just doing one thing. You have to be good at everything for sound. So it's the same with every industry.
I can bring on a sound guy at some point if we need that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
sorry about that. I forgot it wasn't muted.
It's fine.
It's like with any industry. Like they want you to do everything, and they're going to pay you for it. Because if you're the one-stop shop for that job, you're the golden boy. They love you, and if you're not, then you're just a guy that can be replaced at a certain rate, and that's why your rates are so low.
Yeah, but that is the thing. With sound guy is a very good example for someone who is in a very specialized occupation that you need a passion for and to get the deep level competence that you need it for. Technically speaking, you need a similar level of passion and a little bit of weirdness in order to be in translation, to make good translation. And
here's another thing I'm also noticing.
But it's not. Please let me finish that. But with translation, that's not as easily noticeable because you can just put a random idiot there with a dictionary and then just writes random shit. That can go through. If you get a fraudulent sound guy, people will notice much earlier because the whole project doesn't work. When the whole translation project doesn't work, people don't necessarily notice right.
I've also been noticing there are people who are interested in hearing about these people and what they do. Start like a YouTube channel and talk about your job if you feel like you need more money. People will watch that stuff. There's tons of channels about this stuff already.
All right. Well, we can skip ahead. I don't know if you guys want to hear this spiel about
Well, it's not that much more, is it?
It's kind of silly.
No, it's not that much.
It's
not
silly.
It's just 6 minutes anyway.
All right.
She's not
Look,
going
let's
to
just
say much.
speed her up further. Hold on.
Speed her up further.
Turn it to 2 hours.
How fast can we
fine at
go?
it. We almost
Put her at, wait, what speed is this?
look, we just started late.
1.75. Here we go. Oh God.
Maru. More specifically, it's the fact that it was recently publicized. $1 per page. Yeah, $1 per page. And if that sounds ridiculous to you, good. It should sound like that because it is. I don't want to dwell on
What
it
should it
for
cost?
too terribly long because really, if I wanted to, I could make an entirely separate video about Onimaru drama because believe me, there's plenty to say about it. But the short version of the story is that Onimaru is a business that employs people from all over the globe to translate manga. Notably, they've been known to be contracted by Kodansha, Futekia, and Manga Planet, among other companies. But Kodansha is nonetheless the main one that I want to draw your attention to since, as a reminder, it's one of the largest publishers in Japan. An anonymous Futekia employee emphasized to me that 1, Onimaru generally isn't well liked even within the industry, and 2, while Futekia, Manga Planet, and Kodansha have all contracted translation work from Onimaru, that doesn't make their freelancers employees of any of the aforementioned brands. Or more specifically, they couldn't be even if they wanted to, since Onimaru makes its freelancers sign either a non-solicitation or non-compete clause. Again, if this sounds ridiculous, it's because it is. Not least of all because while employees of Futekia, for example, can talk about their work and put it on their resume, Onimaru freelancers just can't do that. And that leads me to the next problem I want to discuss, and that's credit. More specifically, the occasional lack thereof. For bureaucratic reasons that uncoincidentally never seem to be spelled out plainly, it's not unheard of for some projects, such as Onimaru's, to just not credit their translators, which really strikes me as weird because they're arguably the most important cog in the bringing Japanese media to other countries machine. I've heard speculation on potential reasons why this happens, but in the absence of any hard evidence pointing to any of them, I don't.
This is irrelevant. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just cut to the end.
It's just rambling. But I want money, but you're not telling us how. What would be enough? What would be a good price?
Okay. This is good.
A good understanding. Localization and censorship really are and aren't. Translation is a much more fluid thing than a lot of people give it credit for. And by extension, the people whose job it is to make these translations often don't get the credit they deserve. Literally, even sometimes. I guess what I'm hoping you got out
This
of this
was the
video
right
is better
credit. Getting
understanding of why translation
critiqued
often
is
a
the right
complex process,
credit.
better understanding of why translation things happen the way that they do sometimes, and perhaps
No,
most
you
crucially,
didn't.
I really hope that this has given you a newfound appreciation for the people who translate Japanese media.
While
Here's a quote from
also
Noella. I
just
think
No,
it's
you're
sweeping
gaslighting.
away
what this
people's
video was from.
arguments
Quote, translation isn't a
about
one-to-one process.
like actual legit examples. But once again, Dragon Maid, Prison School, you did not
Oh God!
really
Look at this
address
shit.
that.
Look at this shit. Translation isn't a one-to-one process. Number one, okay. It's literally writing a whole new script. Wrong. You're making a black and white argument now. You're using
This
that you
goes
can't do it as a one-on-one. That you're using that as an excuse to completely rewrite it. One
This
that is
goes against
based on
your
what's
argument from the
separate
earlier
original.
parts of the video.
No, it's not. It's not supposed to be separate from the original. It's supposed to be faithful to the original. When you make it separate from the original, then you put in your propaganda bullshit that you try to gaslight us about. You are a piece of shit.
This goes against your argument from the earlier parts of the video too, where this is how she described localization and why it was necessary.
She's just trying to obfuscate that she's actually talking about it, that she's trying to justify the very hack job translations that she complained about in the beginning.
Yeah, I would hate to think that my English translation of like Aristotle is not based and still separate from the like that. I would hate to like, oh, here's a translation of all the works of Arthur Conan Doyle in French. It's separate from the original. I was like, it's separate. What do you mean by separate? It's not based off the original?
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like there's a quotation mark at the beginning, so she's quoting somebody.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's a script, one that is based on but still separate from the original. You're consuming the ideas, not the words of someone else. And how those ideas get brought over is transferred through the lens of the translator.
What? The ideas are represented through words. What are you talking about?
Wait, this is them basically trying to put themselves on the same level of importance as the author of the work.
But
No, you're on its
as a
coattail.
good translator, that is what you try. As a good translator, you try to recreate what the original author has done. If there is a pun in the original text, you can try to recreate that. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes when you're good, like Andreas Brandhorst, who translates Terry Pratchett into German, he is so good at that he manages to retain the humor, sometimes even the grammatical plays of Terry Pratchett in English, and does something similar in German. There are even moments when, if you do know both languages and you have a feeling for how a joke works, that you can see oh, this reads like a joke, but I can't actually see it because it's based on a pun. But if I then, in my head, auto-translate it back into English, then I think, oh, that's what the joke is here. It was just not translatable, but the surroundings of it, the shape of the joke is still there, and there's still this light chuckle there, but you don't really know why. That is peak translation. And what she's saying here, you're consuming the ideas, not the words of someone else. Well then, why is Lukua complaining about the patriarchy? Why is that woman complaining about Gamergate in this loaded way, in this skewed and propagandistic way? Why is that there? Those are not the original ideas of the creators. Those are other ideas that the original ideas were replaced by, and you are making excuses for it. That, it's not there, it's not really bad, it's justified, and it's good that it's there, and you should accept it. Also, it's not there. Fuck you.
I'm trying to remember my example with Aristotle. People get hung up on the word catharsis because they thought Aristotle was like the originator of that word. It only occurs in one translation, in part 4 or 5, the Poetics. And another in translation that's never even there. But you can still use the word to explain nowadays because the word has a specific meaning, but he didn't use that word originally. Yeah. So, and it's like you're missing the word, but the meaning is specific. So it's like you can still use the word even though it's not there. Yeah. It's not a controversial thing, but this is sort of the things that, whoa, I can't find it in the original. It's like, yeah, not the literal word, but the meaning is still found in that part of the sentence.
And Nick, yes, you're right about the end. I just now process that. Yes, she is putting the translator on the same level as the author, and that is so arrogant. No, the translator is not as important as the author. It's one step. It is at best one step below. You should never put yourself on the same step as the author.
Another historical work that I can think of that is mischaracterized because the author was using hyperbolic language, which is common for the time, is the Theban soldiers, the band of thieves.
Theban.
Theban. The 100-man army from Thebes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the translation it says that these men must have been lovers.
Oh, right. Yeah.
In the actual Greek, the term used is agape, which means selfless love.
Yeah, that's not lovers. That is kinship.
Mm-hmm.
Brotherly love.
It's just agape, and it's just hyperbolic language.
Yeah, but it's you can translate that as brotherly love. It's kinship is the right word. It's familial love.
Yeah, people read into that a lot, trying to understand the Greeks. Oh.
Well, yeah, you see that
with difficult. They have
Greeks
different.
The Romans were super gay.
They have distinct words for these types of adoration and emotional connection towards other people.
Yeah,
something that our social justice narcissists, of course, don't understand. They only understand sexual or attraction.
All right. Anyway, we are almost done this video, so just keep going.
Yeah, we actually got all the way through it.
Well, we skipped a bit. That's okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And on that note, I want to yet again thank everyone who directly, and even if you didn't want to be mentioned by name, everybody's input still made this video the best it could be, and for that, I'm really grateful. As a reminder, the end card will have links to further videos on this topic if you want to learn more. There will be the Canapa Effects video on Pay at Crunchyroll, Sarah Moon's The Case for Localization, the cartoon ciphers are English dubs censoring anime, and Getting the Robots Queer Erasure in Eva. I highly recommend you watch, a like, comment.
The queer erasure of Eva.
Because Kaoru is creepy.
An angelic being who has no gender or has no concept of gender loves Shinji.
But he looks like a guy, therefore he's presenting male, therefore gay.
Yeah, when all the other aliens want to crush all humans. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
See, here's another thing. Does he even really love Shinji in that way? Or is it like some fucked up alien way?
Who knows?
Fucked up alien way.
Fucked up alien way.
No one knows in that freaking story. Who the hell knows what's going on through
who the hell knows what's going through Ray's mind?
Oh God, don't even ask that.
Is there anything
Which
there?
one? Which version? Not only
Guess
that,
I'm
but,
alone now.
not only that, but then like which version of the movies, and then which version of the other show. Oh God. Yeah, raise a complex case. Anyway, that was it started off so good. I was like, this is gonna be a great video, and then it's like, oh. Why did we jump into this?
Did we skip anything or?
We skipped like a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
well, got through most of it.
Let's see what we got. We have any stream memes? I'm sure we got some. It's Anime Day. There's got to be a few.
Oh hell yeah!
Okay, here we go. We got these donuts are great. Jelly filled are my favorite.
Oh God, no.
Localizer starts crying at the Japanese grocery store when the cashier says arigato for atmosphere instead of thanks for the sick purchases, dude. But remember to watch your carbon footprint with all that meat consumption.
What?
That's a big jump from arigato. Yeah.
I think that's actually based off of a line change too. I'm not sure.
Oh.
So I think I recall there being some line change about someone buying meat.
All right.
In some slice of life.
Here's the next one. I'm just not really in a good place right now. Damn, the Shadow Realm. Yugi.
I am blown away that the Shadow Realm doesn't exist.
What a beautiful
Wow.
Duane.
Beautiful Dwayne.
This is
Damn,
that,
it hurts.
That
You okay,
translation.
retard? I am Wood. Stupid.
Oh my God. Holy hell. Not even proper punctuation. Anyway.
So the story behind the Dwayne translation was there was a Chinese student who was learning Japanese and English.
It translated it from Japanese to Chinese, then to Chinese to English.
Oh, that's
Oh,
wonderful.
Wow. All right. Difference between subs and Funimation dubs. Subs. What's with the outfit? Dub. What are you wearing that for? Subs. Everyone was always saying something to me, so I tried toning down the exposure. How is it? Dub. Oh, those pesky patriarchal society demands were getting on my nerves, so I changed clothes. Subs. You should try changing your body next. Dub. Give it a week, they'll be begging you to change back. Huh.
Yeah. There's also Toru characterization here because Toru is jealous of Lukua's cup size.
Well,
that is missing in
it's
the
also
dub.
changing who was complaining about Lukua.
Yes.
Because in the original, Lukua was mostly complaining about women complaining about her appearance.
That's what I meant. Everything here is inverted.
She protects,
Because
she
the thing
attacks.
is that the narcissistic feminists, they cannot admit that breast envy is a thing.
This is great.
Penis envy is a projection of feminists. Penis envy is not as much a thing as they want you to believe. What really exists, however, is breast envy.
Well, Japan turns everything into a sexy, cute girl, so that's always fun to watch. There it is. I'm into girls like Jennifer Lawrence. Pleasure to meet you. Yeah, exactly. That crazy guy. Brother! He hates everyone except for this dude because he likes Jennifer Lawrence. She has a nice ass. It's like, what? Dr. Chrisman, I like to think the Japanese localizers make the Westerns SJW cartoons more red-pilled. Oh, maybe. It's possible. Funimation, early 2000s, early 10s. Okay, yeah, I see it. I've created several of the most respected English dubs. You can count on me for a good product. Funimation, mid-2010s, Crunchyroll merge. How dare you get mad at me for shoehorning woke and meta humor in my dubs? You guys are all incels. Oh, is that their attitude?
Yeah, that does kind of make me think. Justin Cook was the guy who kind of managed and produced the Yu Hakusho dub. Whatever happened to him? I rarely see him now.
Yeah, Yu Hakusho is really good.
He isn't around anymore. I think he left, or he's doing stuff in the background now.
All right, what we got here? I know that it could never work between us, not because you're a rabbit, but because you're black.
I love the ghost stories.
All right. This statue of Jesus in Poland provides internet to nearby villages. The internet was a blessing from the Lord Jesus. Okay. Poker Rap Deutsch. I'm gonna watch that later.
Yeah, please do.
Obvious
please
reason.
do. Everyone.
Did you know anime? Due to its lack of commercial success in Japan, the staff of the English dub of Ghost Stories gave the series a comedic overhaul by rewriting character backstories and improvising dialogue. The show won Best Dub of 2006 from Anime Insider. Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, sometimes that can work. Hogan's Hero got a second dub where they made it into a comedy, and then it worked.
So I'm nailing this midget when my mom walks in. He's black, so I'm assuming that he's evil.
Oh god.
Oh my! Is this? I know the name.
That is the Ghost Stories.
That is from Ghost Stories, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A good 90% of the lines were ad-libbed.
Okay.
That is like the Lord of the Weed.
Never met someone who weirdly obsessed about their own crotch like Jamie Marchi. You talk about anything, her answer will be my vagina. And
Lunar Archivist is the one who corrected Jamie's line, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's a good Twitter account. Yeah, corrects a lot of things. Let's just skip that. All right. Breaking. Smash Bros. Creator Masahiro Sakurai reveals that he will no longer be voicing popular video game character King Day-to-Day. In an interview with him, Sakurai stated, "I cannot voice a penguin because I am not, in fact, a penguin myself." Okay. Meta Knight breaks the fourth wall. All right. This is... What is that?
It looks like Pooty Pooty.
Is that Pooty Pooty?
That's Puni Puni Poemi.
Okay.
Don't watch it. Do not watch.
Why?
Watch NHK. It's featured pretty heavily in that.
Just don't.
Don't
do
binging
it.
with Babish, Brock's Donuts from Pokemon. That's funny. He actually made them. Japanese donuts. I think those kids with the weird yellow dog lied to me. Har har. Did Jet just die? You know, it was really unclear.
The theater episode is just great. It's one of the few good recap episodes.
Don't move or we will poke you. This reminds me the Day-to-Day's laser chainsaw in 4Kids Club of Kirby. What? A laser chainsaw?
Yeah, that was 4Kids censorship because you couldn't show an actual chainsaw, so they made a lot of bladed weapons. Like
but that's
the
bullshit.
I mean,
into laser weapons.
I mean, I'm actually okay with making it with a laser chainsaw. I'm actually down with that. That's cool. I call that an improvement. Anything with lasers is better.
All right. Goodness, you have a rather ample bosom. I guess you're into S&M, huh? Okay.
Yeah, that line led a bunch of weird people to think that Rouge and Topaz are lesbians because Rouge made fun of her.
What an edit! Wow.
Where are they?
What happened?
Where are they?
Thanks, 4Kids.
The left doesn't even make any sense. Like, what's happening?
They redrew the entire thing.
And there's the laser chainsaw again, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Also, don't throw that around in the insides of the spaceship.
Mr. Popo turned. What is that?
Blue.
Ultramarine? What is?
They made him blue because they claimed he's racist when he's black.
Because he's a genie.
Because I forgot my bazooka at home. Yeesh. Oh my! I can't read that.
Yeah, no.
That's just a compilation of the whole translations shenanigan.
Oh, there's the Escape the Infinity debacle.
That's a wonderful one at the bottom left. I look forward to the day we can just leave everything Japanese and still cash a paycheck.
Hey,
That's the mentality of these people.
Hey, bitches and bros and non-binary hoes. Oh my god.
That's the first edit that people really noticed, and then as they continued on watching the dub, they're like, "Why are these two people gay whenever in the original they're not?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
They are good
remember, we're all
LGBT in
in
the
bed
server.
here.
Thanks, bro. Okay. I mean human people, not furries. 8+ years of awful politicized English. Okay, well, I'll check that out later.
Oh yeah, that's from Twelly.
Airports Authority of India, eating carpet strictly prohibited. What?
Quiet in the hall.
These are those fucked up literal translations.
Yeah. Oh dear. Hey Smud, sorry I missed the stream. I was getting food with my dad. See you next time. All right.
Oh, that's cool with the tie on.
And buy some chicken. I see you're using Google Translate. I live danger also like. Me singing along to Rammstein, my German friend. Amazing. Every word of what you just said is wrong.
Yes.
Du ha.
Allstein.
Stop it.
Not sure if it's a translation or accurate translation of badly written dialogue. Ooh.
Sometimes.
Start shit.
Start shit.
Okay. And that's it.
I guess that's it.
That's it.
Oh my god. Well, that was a long time coming. And I wish the video turned out. I thought it was going to be a good video. Turned into crap.
Haha, you thought it would be a good video.
Usually they're good. Usually
by
they're
that avatar that it was gonna be bad.
Usually they're good videos. From what timeline do you come? Which smut are you?
Well, we had the Super Bunny one we were going to cover, and I thought that was going to be a good video, and then we switched over to this one. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a good one too. Like, no.
We can still do that next time.
Yeah, maybe.
As soon as Whisp told me that it was Red Bard, I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh yeah, she does other shit like this.
Oh, she does a lot more than this.
Oh, that's sad. She seemed like she knew what she was talking about, and then she just went, "Oh, it's LGBTQ MLNLP." I'm like,
Oh. She may know what she's talking about, but
she
throws
she
in
seems
her.
to be friends with the people doing this shit.
Yeah, so she sounds like she knows what she's talking about and deliberately lies about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well.
most anti-tubers are shills.
Yeah.
The only criticisms they'll have against the establishment are the ones that are safe. The safe criticisms.
Yeah. The problem with these low wages is that it does attract only really bad workers, and that's how you get these parasites into these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody who knows his quality is going to work for that. So in a way, you could say yes, their employers made their bed with this, with paying so little.
There was a translator for Final Fantasy, I think 6, that was known for having terrible translations, and once Square found out that he was doing horrible translations for the game, he was not allowed on any more projects whatsoever.
That does seem to be what's been happening, is they don't generally seem to know how bad the actual localizations are.
Yeah.
Which is why Asmon bringing it up and getting so much attention on it seems to be kind of doing the work.
Well,
hopefully we see a huge turnaround soon.
Yeah, well, a lot of these games that are coming over to the West are I would say pretty
We'll
good.
see. We'll see. I mean, about I think it was in March or May last year. There was I wanted to make a video about that. I'm sorry. Because I have the actual article from a major German newspaper that wrote about should we put a break on the culture war? It was a leftist newspaper. So if anyone tries to tell that the culture war is just a conspiracy theory, no, it's a constant term that's been used by the German left for decades. It's real, it's a thing, it has a definition, and around in the first half of last year, there was a global signal to take a break. And that's what the culture war does. It pushes really far to an extreme when people can't take it anymore, and then they stop. And then they let all that sink in the hopes that the next generation takes this as this is how things are normal. And then 10, 20 years later, they start the next push where they go extreme again to push it a bit further and a bit further and a bit further every time.
Well, even then, what you'll see is they'll generally kind of feel out the popular feelings of people and go off of that, like kind of like what they did with the Amber Heard trial, where they couldn't defend Amber Heard without.
But so that was still that was still before that was still at the height of it, at the height of the current push. That's why they kept pushing it still, and there were still Amber Heard shills out there. What I'm trying to say is this is why since about summer last year, this whole push of crazy has been dying down in many, many parts. It hasn't in Disney because that is still in a tight grip of them. But overall, you can probably agree that you have seen less and less of the woke shit out there. Because they're now trying to let it sink in. The political parties are still pushing their madness, but you hear less of the really crazy shit from them as well. It's all coordinated.
What I've been noticing is normies notice the past examples more.
Yeah, they don't want the normies to know how crazy it actually is. Because when the normies stand up, then they have all the population against them, and that's when they lose power, and they don't want that to happen.
I'm gonna have to head out here.
Yeah, I think it's time to say goodnight. Thank you guys.
Anyway.
That was 3 hours of anime day. Thank you so much. We will talk to you guys soon. Have a great evening or good morning. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.